ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else out there. And when I say everybody else, I obviously mean my they-them royalty. This is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis, and as you know, it is way too late for me to be doing this podcast, but I am pumping out these tweets so we can keep those numbers up. We got a record high number of viewers so far this season. I know it's not a lot to a lot of people, but it means something to me, especially considering I'm not like really posting about where I'm doing the podcast or what time I'm doing it. We are starting an hour later, I believe, than what we normally do, so we'll see how this goes with the numbers. I think the last time I did this, I did not get good results, but we'll see. Sorry, I'm on Twitter playing the podcast now because it's on. I have my delay set up. It took me a while to figure out that when I go to my link, it doesn't show it because it has it doesn't show like a live feed of me because I have a delay built into my stream for when crazy shit happens. So, speaking of crazy shit, week 9 of the NFL season happened. I don't know if you caught any of it. As a matter of fact, it doesn't matter if you caught any of it, because if you're here, you know that I'm going to talk about it in 1 hour or less because I watched every single play from this past week of NFL football. What that means for me mentally is not great. It is 4 o'clock in the morning and I just finished watching all of the games. I had some stuff to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I unfortunately had to delay watching a bunch of stuff. But if you're in the chat, make sure you drop a like, drop a subscribe, or hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because it seems like for some reason I've attracted the night owl crowd, which is pretty funny for me personally because that's kind of the hours that I'm usually up anyway. Like 4 o'clock. Like I was pretty tired watching Chiefs Bills just before I started doing this podcast, and then the second the mic turned on, all the energy just magically came back. We're working on some technical stuff. Apparently working on connecting with somebody who's got a pretty prominent online following. We'll see how that works out in the long run. It's another guy named Ashton, so that'll be interesting. My uncle, who does business stuff, and when I say business stuff, I mean like actual business, not like code for selling drugs or anything like that. He knows a guy. He knows this guy's mom, and he has like a huge internet following, and he's trying to get me to, I guess, link up with this dude. Who knows, man? I've been actually having a pretty good week, like overall. Like I've been having like these crazy strokes, so I wouldn't say luck, but these crazy positive things happening. So we'll see if this is one of those things or if it's the beginning of the bad streak, because, you know, everything is balanced in life. Anyway, we'll go back to talking about football instead of my life, because I only have an hour to explain to you everything that happened in week 9 of the NFL season. And considering a bunch of crazy shit happened, we should get on that. It's 4:12 right now, and I'm 4 minutes into the podcast. So in an hour, in 5 minutes, we'll be done talking about week 9 of the NFL season. As a matter of fact, this is probably going to be the closest we're going to get all season, because there's a couple of games where I only wrote notes down on this piece of paper because I'm trying something out, and there's a couple of games where I actually didn't write any notes down because it wasn't worth my time writing notes down. I'm just going to tell you what I remember distinctly happening and all the bad things that went along with it. So, if you don't know, we have the 4 different categories. We have Snooze Fest, which are the games that almost made me fall asleep watching them. As you guys do know, I drink whiskey on Sundays, and I go back and I watch the replay. So I end up having to watch some of the, I'm not gonna lie, I end up having to watch replays of games I already watched for you know, just to make sure that my brain saw the right thing. And then we have the oh my category. Those are usually games that have an interesting result for good or for bad. Heartbreaker is one of the categories. I think that's the second one today. Heartbreaker is a game that broke either the fans, or in this case, we're in week 9 of the season, broke the team. We're at the halfway point of the season. A lot of teams are definitively what they are. If you have 2 wins at week 9 of the season, guess what, buddy? If you make the playoffs, you would be statistically the most unlikely team to ever make the NFL playoffs in the history of this league. So it's pretty much done in terms of certain teams being able to make the playoffs and not make the playoffs. But as you know, statistically, that whether or not you make the playoffs is kind of determined what happens in the first 4 weeks of the season, let alone the first 9. But yeah, some of these teams have revealed themselves to be exactly who we thought they were. Some of them have revealed themselves to be disappointments and shockingly very good at what they were doing. Let's take it off from the top, man. So I need to crop this correctly or it's gonna drive me crazy. Sorry guys. Everybody who's listening and watching and stuff. Anyway, there we go, fixed it. Taking it from the top, the Rams played the New Orleans Saints. And I say that I make this joke like almost every single week for a good reason. The New Orleans Saints showed up to play a football game, and the Rams chose to play the game while the Saints elected to be there, right? Kellen Moore, first year as a head coach in the NFL. He's been saddled with, I wouldn't even say saddled with, he's been put in a pretty rough situation. Spencer Rattler was somebody else's choice at the quarterback position, right? Kellen Moore is a guy who, for the last couple of years, we've seen him as an offensive coordinator do pretty well in terms of like generating high-powered offense. He's got a new rookie. He's got another rookie quarterback starting because of just how badly Spencer Rattler kind of came apart at the seams last game. Tyler got into the game, and I'll say this much right now. I was tuned out of this game the second that I saw this clip that was going around. I want to say it was like NOLA 5, which is the Fox affiliate in New Orleans. I'm sorry if it's not, but they were talking to Alvin Kamara in the locker room. Alvin Kamara told a story about how he's been connecting with Tyler Shute, who apparently Tyler's like Brendan Whedon reincarnated, not as a person, but he's like the next iteration of Brendan Whedon, because I think he's like 27 or something like that, or 26, because he's been playing college football for 7 years. And you know, the assessment is out there. Yes, you can get better, but the chances that you improve drastically enough to become an NFL starting caliber quarterback, only time will tell. I'm always willing to give somebody a chance, especially since we're learning the important lessons of understanding that time is one of the most important factors for developing QBs. Anyway, moving on. Tyler's out there. Alvin Kamara is telling the story because somebody asked him how he's been relating to the rookie. And Kamara tells the story about how he has to correct Tyler Shute about how to motion players correctly in the offense. And the second that I heard that story, I knew what time it was. The Saints are doing the thing. They are intentionally trying to lose. And it's going to work. It's going to be successful. They traded away Raheed Shaheed. He's actually coming to my team, the Seattle Seahawks. So it's about to get crazy in this bitch. We're about to be 4 or 5 wide receivers deep. I will say this: they got Shaheed because of the heavy injuries at the wide receiver position. Like Jake Bobo has played like 3 games this season or something like that. And you can't expect Cooper Kupp to stay 100% healthy all the time. But yeah, no, 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL are now on the same squad. And then the guy who is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for the past like 3 years is also on the squad at the same time. And we also run 21 personnel with 2 massive tight ends who are really good at catching the ball. No big deal. Plus, we have Kenneth Walker. I'm feeling it, guys. We're going to talk about it later. We'll talk about it later, like in the third part of the Snooze Fest category. Snooze Fest, Monday Night Football. Obviously, the big thing coming out of Monday Night Football is the player who passed away. Sorry, I have to look him up real quick. I forgot his name off the top of my head. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry. Player that passed away. Yeah, you're seeing the system go completely crazy because it is designed terribly. It is Marshawn Nealon who passed away at the age of 24. I was told by my uncle on the phone that he took his own life, which is heartbreaking in a lot of different ways because there's no telling what was going on with him. Apparently, he was struggling with his mental health, and it's just one of those examples of, hey man, you never know what somebody's going through. It's why it takes nothing to be kind to people. Never forget that. But going back to the football aspect of it, this game kind of went exactly as I suspected. I had a friend who, I actually have a teammate who was planning on starting the Cowboys defense in this matchup because he thought they were going to do pretty well versus the Cowboys. And I could have told you that was not going to be the case. Jacoby Brissett is very good at running the Cardinals offense. I would dare say Jacoby Brissett is better at running the Cardinals offense than any offense I've seen him in so far in his career. How long that will last, we do not know. We saw him look really good and really effective when he was with the Cleveland Browns a couple years ago. Him and Joe Flacco going back and forth with each other. You know what I mean? And now, all these years later, both of them still in the league. Still in the league, both of them. And still slanging that thing, too. Experience is one of life's greatest teachers, but Jacoby Brissett's tearing it up, and they put Kyler Murray on IR, which I can only assume was I have a strange feeling Kyler Murray's not super pumped about that, especially because this is typically his annual foot injury that he gets, because he's like you can go back and look at it. He's got like ankle injuries. Obviously last year he tore his ACL and all that kind of stuff like that. He's got foot injuries that he gets all the time. And this is like right around the time that he comes back and he performs poorly, either because he came back too early from his injury, or Kyler Murray is not as good as we all thought he was. And so he struggles mightily in a lot of situations over time. Maybe he's similar to what we see out of backup quarterbacks, where like you play them for a certain period of time and they're only good for that certain period of time. And outside of that framework, they cannot succeed. Either way, I have a strange feeling Kyler Murray wouldn't be on IR if Jacoby Brissett was not winning the Cardinals games and making them competitive. They were going toe-to-toe with the Indianapolis Colts with their backup QB and without their number one wide receiver. They're experiencing something. Jonathan Gannon is experiencing this thing called saving my job. Him and Brian Daboll this season. So, but yeah, who knows? Obviously, this is going to help Jacoby Brissett stick around in the league for another 10 years. And me personally, I'm really excited for the brisket. You know what I mean? Low and slow is how you make a perfect brisket. And Jacoby's been marinating. He's been smoking it for a long, long time. And it's finally come to fruition. He's got some more goodness in that arm. You know what I mean? The Dallas Cowboys, we talked about this before. You cannot be the team that expects your offense to go out there and tear it up every single game. You are like, I have a friend. I think she's my friend. I don't know. Her name's Sarah, and she was watching the game. And I texted Sarah. She was like, it sucks watching the Cowboys. And I'm like, well, Sarah, the Cowboys are really fun in the sense that they are constantly playing the most dangerous game in the entirety of the NFL. They either have to score 45 points every game, or they are going to lose. And that puts a sense of urgency in the Cowboys offense that I don't see in a unique type of urgency that I don't see in any other offense in the NFL. They understand what the assignment is. If they don't have 20-something points by halftime, they're probably going to lose the game. And they probably need to put a little bit of pep in their step throughout the course of the game. And I can, me personally, understanding your limitations, I can respect that. And I feel like the Cowboys offense fully understands their limitations. Also, the Cowboys front office does too. They traded for Logan Wilson, which means that hopefully my boy Kenneth Murray's not about to get benched. But hopefully that's not the case. If you guys don't know, I've known Kenneth since he was like in high school. I wouldn't say that we're friends or anything like that, but I got a chance to interview him a couple of times when he was in high school. And I still root for him to this day, just like I root for Parker Washington. But yeah, man, it's fun. I think if you're a Cowboys fan, this is probably the best version of the season that you could possibly think you would have, because I think most Cowboys fans thought they were going to come into this year and they were going to suck ass, especially after Micah left. We got a comment in the chat. Dirt Bob Square Neck, interesting. He says, haha, facts. I'm assuming he's talking about how the Cowboys play one of the more fun games in the NFL every single week. I personally, I enjoy it. Let's see. He's got a comment here. I had to stretch out my fucking comment section on here. Williams crushing it this season in Dallas, though. Javonte Williams. Yeah, man. Javonte's been interesting. So he was really good with the Denver Broncos, and it's so strange. Like, there's so many instances in the NFL this season where we've seen people like move from one team to another and be as successful as they were with the other team. Like, there's not like they're like both parties split ways and are still successful. Like we talked about Jordan Brooks with the Miami Dolphins last week, where he was with the Seattle Seahawks. They cut him mid-season. He joins up with the Dolphins and been slowly getting better and stuff like that. Javonte Williams has been killing it this season at the running back position for the Cowboys, and Rico Dowdle is also killing it. We'll talk about the Panthers a little bit later on here, but it's kind of wild, you know what I mean? It's almost like there doesn't have to be a winner and a loser, and there's no binary to who wins and loses situations. Sometimes Everybody can benefit from other people being other places. Who would have thought? But yeah, no, Javonte's actually been one of the few parts of the offense that the Cowboys can count on throughout the course of this entire season. Everything else has been kind of suspect. George Pickens has been great. He's gonna get that. He's gonna get that sweet, sweet contract. He's gonna get that sweet, sweet extension. I'll be interested to see who gets into the mix to try and get George Pickens on their team. I will also say this. He's the rare instance of a wide receiver from the Steelers leaving the Steelers and still being good, which means that George Pickens may be a Hall of Famer. NFL young boy. Never broke again. He about to be NBA young boy. Never broke again. Anyway, moving on. Next game on the list. Seattle Seahawks, Washington Commanders, 38-14. I'm going to tell you, so this is how I'm going to explain this game to you so we can move on with our lives, so you can move on with your life. This game was Sunday Night Football. I knew what was going to happen. I knew Jaden Daniels was playing. I've watched every single Seahawks game this season, and Jamel Dean is huge. Jamel Dean is huge, especially when he actually catches the interception. If you get that joke, you get that joke. Seattle Seahawks situation. I knew what was going to happen in this game. It was there was very little chance that anything other than what I thought was going to happen. The Seattle Seahawks were going to come out here and whoop the Commanders' ass. The Commanders' defense is progressively degrading as the season goes along, mainly because of the injuries and stuff like that. There's very few defensive backs that you can count on that are on this roster so far. Like Marshawn Lattimore has been a little up and down throughout the course of this season, and he was reeled down versus JSN. Most defensive backs are reeled down. We saw Adrian Amos almost tear his groin trying to keep up with JSN on a play where he didn't even get the ball thrown to him. This game was 28-10. No, it was 28-7 going into halftime, and I stopped watching. I literally turned it off. Jamel Dean is having a huge turnaround this year, and so our guy in the chat here is a big Tampa Bay fan. But yeah, Tampa Bay's fun. I like those guys, mainly because I'm a big Baker fan. He's from Texas, and he's from Austin, and UT didn't even recruit him. There's a bunch of other guys too out there. Anyway, it's hard not to root for Vita Vea. It's hard not to root for Leonard. Anyway, moving on. We'll talk about that later. Actually, they're on a bye week, so I have to wait another week to talk about them. But yeah, Tampa Bay probably is going to win the NFC South. We'll see. But going back to what I was saying, my experience with this one, my girlfriend was working on stuff for her job, and I was watching the couch, and I was counting the seconds down. Because I was just the first drive that I saw, the first two drives, I was like, man, it's just not going to happen, bro. Unless it looks something like what they put out on Monday Night Football versus the Chiefs, it just wasn't going to happen for them. And it didn't happen throughout the course of this game. They got up 28-7 going into halftime, and I was like, cool, so what are we watching? I think we watched Treasure Planet. So my girlfriend, I think she saw it when she was a lot younger, and she doesn't remember the plot of it or anything like that. Treasure Planet is one of the greatest movies that Disney ever produced, and it is so wild, the choice to drift away from that animation style they made. That's how much I give a fuck about this Seahawks game. Remember, I'm a Seahawks fan, and I knew what was going to happen, and the second that I knew the Commanders had no chance, I was over it. I heard Jaden Daniels dislocated his elbow, then I saw the video. I personally didn't need to see that. Kind of had an idea of what it was going to look like, but for the most part, man, yeah, a lot of people shocked and amazed that the Commanders are kind of falling apart. I'm like, well, they've been hit with injuries. Like most teams but most teams take a step back when their starting quarterback is in and out of the lineup. Marcus Mariota, probably one of the best backups in the NFL, let's be real. And he's actually done a good job of holding water to kind of keep them competitive in the NFC Beast. But the fact of the matter is the Eagles are running away with it right now. And the Commanders are not in the spot where they need to be competitive, because even beating the Eagles in the division is not going to help them out of the situation that they're currently in, because they won't have the other wins to go along with it to be competitive in the wild card or in the divisional race. But yeah, it's been tough. Also, the Seahawks. I'm a Seahawks and a Texans fan, and I'm gonna say it, man. You know, I said it in the preseason I said it in the preseason episode, I'll say it again. My Super Bowl pick is the Packers versus the Baltimore Ravens. I was feeling bad about my Ravens half of that pick, but I'm progressively getting a little bit better about it. Thursday Night Football, we shouldn't have expected any. We'll talk about it. Thursday Night Football, I picked the Ravens. I think Jordan Love is going to be MVP of the season. That's what I said in the preseason. If I was going to be wrong about who I think is going to make it to the Super Bowl from the NFC East, I think it might be the Seahawks. And I wouldn't mind buying another championship shirt. I got my Aces championship shirt. I wouldn't mind buying a Seahawks championship shirt this season as well. Anyway, also, if you watch Unrivaled Basketball, drop in the comments who you think is going to win the league. I'm interested to see what people think. Moving on, Snooze Fest, last one on this one. I actually wrote a bunch of notes for this one because I was kind of disgusted by this game. And it's not because I'm a Texans fan and I like shitting on the Titans. I think the Titans fans were also disgusted by this game. But we'll talk about it. We'll say it out loud. We'll speak it into existence. The Tennessee Titans were terrible this game. And, sorry, let me correct that. Anything involved with the Tennessee Titans offense was terrible in this game. Tell me what's new, right? Now you're wondering. I know you're sitting there at your computer screen listening to me, podcast, whatever wise. You're wondering, Ashton, they lost by 1 touchdown against a playoff contending LA Chargers team, which, by the way, we may need to change our opinion on the Chargers this season. I did say they were the biggest mystery coming into this year. They are one of the few teams that has beaten the Chiefs this season. And some other things have happened. Things have changed. There has been a material change, as some people would say. But yeah, they're a playoff contender. And all I have to say to that is life comes at you fast. Life in this case was the fact that the Tennessee Titans did not score a touchdown on offense in this game. And so you're probably wondering, what the hell? They have 20 points on the board. They got a punt return from DK, who, by the way, D-I-K-E, if you don't watch the Tennessee Titans, he's actually been killing it this entire season. Him and Amaya Mayer been killing it. By the way, the Titans in this game, to their credit, they didn't have Jeffrey Simmons. They didn't have Calvin Ridley. They didn't have, who was it? Tajay Spears was also out. Basically, like every major offensive player outside of Cam Ward on their team was hurt in this game, plus Jeffrey Simmons. They had the young guns and Cam Ward. So you got a chance to look at the potential future of the Tennessee Titans today. And boy, are they a couple 57,000 steps behind everybody else. Moving on, they got a punt return from DK, a crazy punt return touchdown from DK, super rare in the NFL nowadays as well. And then they got another huge play. It was Cody Barton, who, if you've been watching the Tennessee Titans this season, unfortunately, I've watched every single play they've played this season. Cody Barton's been kind of knocking on the door, doing some crazy shit. He's got the stickiest hands probably out of any linebacker in the NFL so far this season. He's dropped like 3 interceptions, but he's also got a couple as well. This one, he had like a 35-yard pick 6, was pretty impressive. It wasn't like one of those like the quarterback just kind of it wasn't like Justin Herbert spazzed out. He tricked Justin Herbert into throwing at somebody that he was able to reach out and cover, and he jumped the route, ran it back, and scored. That's pretty impressive, especially for a linebacker. Outside of that, the Titans don't score a TD in this game. Everything else is a field goal. Tells you everything you need to know. Also, should tell you a lot about the Chargers. But we'll talk about that later. We're in week 9. The Titans have 8 touchdowns on offense. It's 5 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns. They have 2 running backs who rushed for 1,000 yards last season, and Calvin Ridley, who caught for 1,000, if I'm not mistaken, as well. The Chargers should be alarmed at how close this game was. Because if you're a real, like, legitimate playoff contender, this is the type of team that you beat 31-10. Like, even if they scored 2 defensive touchdowns, you should still put up 30 points. The defense, like I said last week, is not the issue for the Chargers. A lot of people were really focused on what happened versus the Colts, and I implore you to go look at literally any other team that the Colts have played this season. The same exact thing happened to every other team. They gave up quite a few points. The Colts were like 4 points away in 2 different games from scoring 40 plus points in half the games they've played this season, which is crazy. The whole the problem was the pass protection. It seemed like it kind of got fixed in the Thursday Night Football game that they played against the Vikings. Sorry to say, turns out it's directly correlated to having both of your like superstar tackles in the game, because the Tennessee Titans defensive line without Jeffrey Simmons got 6 sacks on the LA Chargers. They got charged up for sure. Joe Alt does not finish this game, and as a matter of fact, he is officially out for the season, which is worst case scenario, because now it's Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, and Rashawn Slater's future as an NFL football player in terms of his recovery from this injury still up in the air, right? The Chargers backups got a bunch of work, and by multiple defensive linemen from the Tennessee Titans. They saw a bunch of these games that they were running up front. They were running a lot of ETs and TEs, tackles to ends and all this kind of stuff like that. And due to the lack of chemistry across the board, they got cooked like multiple times just off the sheer fact that they're not in sync with each other. That includes like dropping at the same depth at the same time. That includes being able to actually pass off pass rushers correctly to prevent instant pressure up the middle. And the Tennessee Titans took advantage of it. That's just kind of how it was. As this game goes, Justin Herbert gets some decent protection and he dimes up the Tennessee Titans. Like it's been a struggle all season. I think it finally happened. I think the Titans are broken. This is the game where it feels like maybe their spirits got broken in this one. Justin Herbert completed 19 passes in this game. 10 of them went for over 10 yards, right? And out of those 10, 2 went for 21 yards and 23 yards, and then 2 more out of those 10 went for 34 31 yards. So it wasn't like he was just kind of like casually kind of slinging it around or whatever. They were getting huge chunks of yardage. And I'll say this, if you go back and you watch the film, the Titans DBs are like right on the wide receivers when the ball gets there. That's the tough part about it. They're actually covering really, really well. Justin Herbert was just diming them up. Like legitimately diming them up in a lot of these cases. So throws from Herbert were pretty insane throughout the course of this game when he had time. The Titans had next to 0 passes over 10 yards throughout the course of this game. So once again, they got caught in this vicious cycle. The continuous cycle. Somebody mentioned the guy. There he is. Somebody mentioned him. Gatson should have been dunking on him. Gatson is our guy. He was our Who player of the week 2 weeks ago. Our mysterious tight end, who is the son of an NFL wide receiver who went to college with Stephen A. Smith, if you remember watching the last week's podcast. Really weird. Stephen A. Smith graduated the year that he was a freshman. His dad was a freshman at Winston-Salem. Is it Winston-Salem College? It's HBCU. Anyway. But yeah, NFL offenses need explosive plays. So the cycle goes like this. You need explosive plays. To get explosive plays, you have to get it one of 2 ways. That is playmaking players like Christian McCaffrey or JSN and all these other guys out there that when you throw them like simple routes, they're able to turn those routes into like 5 times the value of them. 5 times they're able to turn those routes into like 5 times the value of what they actually are worth, right? Like a 3-yard check down turns into like a 15-yard game when Christian McCaffrey touches the ball in the right situation, right? Or you get time in the pocket and you're able to develop your deep routes down the field and get accurate throws. Well, I think we both know what the problem is with the Tennessee Titans. They, one, don't have the consistent playmakers, I will say this. They have guys who have gone out there and made some plays throughout the course of the season, and they've actually done pretty well in terms of like running the ball now that they have Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard back. But overall, they've not found a consistent playmaker. So teams don't have to worry about those underneath passes as much in terms of like stopping the Tennessee Titans, right? The other part is they don't have enough time in the pocket. So what does that turn into? Not enough time in the pocket turns into I can only throw checkdowns. I am limited in who I can actually access on each individual play every time the ball is snapped. Meaning that there's no explosive plays, meaning your offense that's led by a rookie quarterback has to lead these long methodical drives for your offense to be able to score consistently, which there are like elite level MVP caliber players who cannot lead long methodical 10-9 play drives down the field to get points. So to expect Cam Ward to be able to do it with one of the worst offensive line combinations in the NFL is erratic. It is not even erratic. It's unlikely, and it's not even his fault. It's a bad situation, and this is like we're getting into the territory. I'm sure a lot of people have been saying this online. They're really hoping that Cam doesn't end up getting like kind of like gun shy from all the stuff that's happening this season. But guy in the chat, Dirt Bob Squareneck, says he remembers watching Gatson play back in the day. Wow, when he played for the Dolphins. You're right, because he was like the number 2 wide receiver for the Dolphins for a while there. Actually, like, he was number 1 in catches and like number 2 in yards for like 3 years in a row or something like that. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much what the Titans' vicious cycle is. They keep finding themselves in all the time. They get behind the sticks pretty early on because they're trying to find ways to get the ball deeper down the field. And so it either ends up being a waste of a down and they end up in 2nd and 10, or in a lot of scenarios, the pressure shows up really early on throughout the course of these pass plays, and Cam Ward either gets sacked from behind or gets taken down on like key downs, like 3rd downs and stuff like that, and it's for tackles for loss, and they end up having to figure out how to get a rookie quarterback and an inexperienced offense to get to convert 3rd and 15s, bro. And it's just not going to happen. They have a 28% 3rd down conversion rate, and I'm sure that they are number 1 in 3rd down distance in the NFL. I can eyeball it based off of seeing all the other teams that I've seen play this season. That's what it feels like. But yeah, the Titans punt and the opponent gets short fields, so they're able to run the score up on them, even though their defense is pretty good. The opponent with a short field consistently throughout the game is going to be able to win the war of attrition, as they call it. Eventually you end up starting drives in your opponent's territory over time as your offense continues to give up yards and stuff like that. You're just one bad punt away from being at the Titans' 50-yard line, pretty much. But yeah, the Titans' defense basically has to be perfect every single week, and it's just not going to happen. So that's the snooze fest category. We're moving on with our lives and yours. So we're going on Heartbreakers. I'm going to do this one off the top of the dome. I watched every single second of this game live before I started drinking. I was having a good time. I ate a great breakfast on Sunday. I woke up and I was expecting, hold on, let me hit this water break real quick. I woke up on a Sunday morning. I knew the Texans were playing the Denver Broncos, and I was like, this final score is probably about to be 3-0. The Texans get out to an early lead in this one, and then I know in the back of my head the Denver Broncos offense just doesn't work. Like, structurally, Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and I've talked about this with my friend Danny Mata, who, if you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. He covers sports out in Denver, Colorado. He moved from Houston. He used to cover high school sports with me. Shout out to the Texas High School Football Mafia. He used to cover high school sports with me, and now he's a reporter out in Denver with him and his lovely wife, and he gets to watch the Broncos. We were chatting it up last night because he was talking shit to me about our fantasy football league that I've been in. We've been in the same fantasy football league together for like 7 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about, but that's how time flies. He and I were talking about just the Denver Broncos basically are good for like 2 or 3 good drives every game against a decent team. If you're a bad team, usually the Broncos are able to run you over pretty easily because they have RJ Harvey and they have J.K. Dobbins, but they're almost non-existent passing offense for the first like half of every game that they've played this season. It has consequences, especially against good defenses. Houston deserved that dub. I will put this out here, and I say this as a Houston Texans fan. I've watched damn near every game the Texans have ever played since the year 2002 when I was just a wee 6th grader. The Texans got exactly what they deserved. This loss is a product of a structural failure. This is the first time I can sit here and say Nick Caserio in charge of the Texans has failed the Texans. Pretty much since he got here, every single step and every single move he has made perfect sense. And this past offseason, the team elected to get rid of the entirety on the core of the offense, right? And sit Laramie Tunsil, who is one of, if not the best left tackle in the NFL, and they sent him away to the Commanders for draft picks, which could help out in the long run because if you believe Laramie Tunsil is washed or he's getting older to the point where like you're just going to end up having to pay him more money without getting better production or more production out of him, that's totally understandable as well. And the fact of the matter is this is the real world, not the stock market. We're running out of time on CJ Stroud's rookie contract because I'm pretty sure he's just going to get paid next season, which will throw off all the money that Nick Caserio has available to figure out this free agent situation, because a lot of the pass rush that the Texans generate comes from free agents and Will Anderson. It's literally a series of guys that are free agents, Danielle Hunter, and Will Anderson, who is one of the well-spent draft picks that the Houston Texans have had. But time is a ticking, and we're talking meta stuff when we need to be talking about football stuff. The Texans still can't run the football, but they did get, surprisingly, some great offense out of C.J. Stroud before he got cracked on that play. I did not believe that play was dirty, by the way. I thought, one, he got hit in the ribs, and he got hit so hard that he smacked his head on the turf, which is the most NFL thing possible. Like, it's not like somebody hit you so hard that you got hurt. Somebody hit you so hard that you hit something else so hard that you got injured, because that's how vicious the force that an NFL player can generate. But overall, man, this one was brutal. Davis Mills came in. He actually threw a couple of dimes, but it was not enough consecutive good plays to be able to put together a drive. And then, of course, that bought enough time throughout the course of this game for Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos to get their one good drive in that they get every single game. They had the score tied at 15-all for a little bit there, and then it came down to the final drive of the game. Bo Nix escapes the pocket, runs up the field for about 15 yards, gets the Broncos in the field goal range, and I knew that we had already lost the game the second he crossed the first down marker, because the Broncos do have the ability to run the ball really well, and that's what it came down to. This is the expectation to sit here and be like, we got Davis Mills in the game all of a sudden, and yes, in Dirt Bob Squareneck is correct. Tackles are invaluable. Ask literally any quarterback in the NFL. The 3 years ago, the LA Rams had one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and now they have one of the better ones. They have one of the top 10 offensive lines in the league, and Matthew Stafford looks like an MVP at year whatever it is. Isn't like 15 or something like that. He looks like an MVP, and he might legitimately win MVP. That's how big a difference it is. Whether you're a young quarterback or an old one, nobody wants to get hit by a giant person that they cannot see. It affects your confidence, and it affects your ability to, play football, whatever. The Broncos win. They, I wouldn't say it was just brutal, because basically the Texans just needed one good drive in the entirety of the second half of this game. Also, when C.J. Stroud went out, there was a lot of like, oh man, maybe he's going to come back. He was not coming back. It looked like he was unconscious at one point on the turf. And I know, they let Josh Allen go back in after he's unconscious, like he did last season when he came here to Houston. He got knocked unconscious and then hopped up and played the next play. Whatever. The Texans, it's been over for a while, but this one kind of just put the nail in the coffin, man. This is a loss to an AFC team. The Denver Broncos continue to be the most suspect good team in the NFL. Congratulations, boys. I don't know. They, like I said before, I think the Broncos have the worst possible curse that any team in sports can have. They play up and down to competition, and that's horrible, because at some point they're gonna play up to the wrong. They're gonna play down to the wrong team, and that team is going to smoke them. So, unless they can figure this whole thing out with Bo Nix. Like we said, this was expected to be a big-time defensive matchup, and it was overall. You're talking about the Houston Texans defense that almost won them a game versus the Seattle Seahawks, a team that was completely outclassing the Texans offense, and the defense was so good that it kept them in the game. Moving on, the 49ers played the Giants. This game was pretty interesting. There's a couple things that were going on here. So if you guys don't know the deal, Another week has passed, and the injuries are still there for the San Francisco 49ers. They've slowly been getting people back. They got George Kittle back in this, and they got Kyle Juszczyk. He went out he got hurt in one of the games and came back later on. And Mac Jones still hurt, obviously. And then we're all still wondering how the thing hasn't happened. I don't want to say it out loud, but you know what I'm talking about. We're all still wondering how Christian McCaffrey is not hurt. Also, is Brandon Ayuk ever coming back? Does anybody know? Speaking of guys coming back, is Brock Purdy coming back? Allegedly coming back this upcoming week. We'll see. That's the big drama going on. Everybody worried about the chemistry for the offense when Brock Purdy comes back. And I was like, man, Brock Purdy came back when he was hurt and he still looked pretty good. Anyway, it's like he's good or something. Who knows? Everything I've seen about Brock Purdy says that he knows how to play offense in this offense. Also, don't forget, it's Kyle Shanahan, guys. Quarterback-proof offense. But yeah, other than that, anyway, the Giants get, you guys know what I'm going to say. The Giants on their first possession get an opening drive touchdown. The transition to Tyrone Tracy looks pretty rough throughout the course of this game. There's not too many rush games. There's not too many games where there's not too many games this season where we've seen Tyrone Tracy actually be able to rush completely. I'm sorry, in this game, there's not too many situations where Tyrone Tracy rushes cleanly. Very few games where very few run plays where he actually gets like 5 yards or something like that. I don't even. I was going to do the numbers on it, but I just eyeball tested and I'm like, there's not a single. Like, there's a couple where obviously they run the ball really well, but it was a tough day. Like what the 49ers defensive line, which is heavily injured. Remember, Nick Bosa's not there, and a couple of other people as well. But whatever they lack in terms of like rushing the passer, which they were still getting a Jackson Dart a couple of times. They just couldn't really finish. But for the most part, whatever they lack in rushing the passer at an elite level, they make up for it with what they do defending the run. They were cracking the Giants' offensive line up front. It was crazy. Their defensive tackle had like multiple tackles for loss on Tyrone Tracy when they were running up the middle. But yeah, the 49ers' first drive in this game is super sus. Go back and watch it if you have time. But they got 2 false starts. One of those false starts were on a 4th and 1. They literally had like Kyle Juszczyk leaning forward as they were trying to run the tush push. They were trying to run a QB sneak, and Kyle Juszczyk was already moving before the ball got snapped, and the refs are like right there, right? Like all the players are condensed within like a 10-yard box, and apparently nobody saw the big-ass fullback leaning forward, but they didn't call it. Then they have the most 50-50 catch/interception I've seen so far this season, let alone like the last like 5 years. There was a wide receiver named Watkins for the 49ers who his DB is in trail position. His DB does a great job, and this is a Giants defensive back. He jumps, his hands and Watkins' hands are right on top of each other, like a compass where his hands are pointing north-south and Watkins' hands are pointing east-west, and he snatches the ball, and Watkins snatches the ball from him as they're going down to the ground. But me personally, it kind of sucks when the tie goes to the offense because I felt like that Giants DB definitely got the interception. Anyway, that keeps the drive alive to eventually set up Kyle Shanahan is an evil mastermind. The 49ers get the ball to the Giants' 5-yard line. They set up with 31 personnel, so they've got 2 tight ends. Kyle Juszczyk out there, Christian McCaffrey, and Juwan Jennings out there as well. Juwan Jennings is lined up on the left-hand side, tight to the line of scrimmage. There's another wide receiver who's with them as well. They have Kyle Juszczyk on the end of the left side of the line, and they actually have Kyle Juszczyk lined up on the right-hand side, and then he motions over to the left. George Kittle is lined up on the right-hand side of the offensive line, and Christian McCaffrey is lined up to the right of Mac Jones. The Giants are in some sort of magical red zone, you know what I mean? They're not in true man coverage because of the bunch formations, but they snap the ball. There's 3 people now lined up on the left-hand side. Christian McCaffrey motions out to the left, so it makes 4 people to the left of the left tackle. All 3 of the routes in the bunch, including Kyle Juszczyk and the 2 wide receivers, run in routes and drag routes from left to right. And they use them like giant rub routes. He ran 3 wide receivers to run the biggest rub route in NFL history because they could not send a defensive back over the top or across the middle of the field to cover Christian McCaffrey as he leaked out of the backfield to run a flat route into the end zone. There was not a defensive back within the frame when he caught the ball. Thought it was a little illegal because at one point Juwan Jennings just runs into a defender. Go back and rewatch. Somebody go back and watch and tell me what you think. Anyway, it was kind of annoying. I actually, I'm not a big fan of the Giants because I don't like I don't like the vibe of why people are excited about Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo. I've already said that before. It's very obvious what it is. Not a fan. But yeah, that's just me. The crazier part of this game is we're talking about like Mac Jones and how he's hurt and how Kyle Shanahan has like a quarterback-proof offense. It also helps when Mac Jones is just good at football. Remember, Mac Jones did lead the Patriots to the playoffs at one point when their team was declining. And to his credit, in this game, he has 13 consecutive completions. Like passes. They're not check downs. There's like literally multiple passes that go for over 10 yards. Some of them are swing routes. Some of them are thrown into coverage. Straight up dimes. 13 consecutive passes. The 14th one is the problem. The 14th pass that Mac Jones throws in this game is late in the second quarter, like legitimately like less than a minute on the clock. He throws it. It gets hit. His elbow gets hit as he's going forward. They called it a fumble, but I think it needs to be adjusted to an interception. The ball flies up about 10 yards into the air, and then Brian Burns catches it. It's brutal. It's brutal. The question is, in the chat, Dirtbot Squareneck thinks that there's potential that Mac Jones is better than Brock Purdy. I disagree, but it is impressive how long Mac Jones has been able to be successful so far in this offense that Kyle Shanahan's been running. Can't take anything away from that. Usually what's about to happen next is Mac Jones is about to get a shit ton of money from one of the worst teams in the NFL. So we'll see what happens. Shout out to Mac for getting paid. Going back to what I was saying. Brian Burns catches an interception. They call it a fumble, even though the ball never touches the ground. It was so weird. They try to call it a fumble because they're saying that his throw of his arm moving forward with the empty hand makes the empty hand rule mean that it's a fumble. It was a strip sack. It was not. The Giants get the ball. The Giants get the ball deep in. I think they get on like the 30-yard line of the 49ers. And the 49ers beat down their heavily injured defense completely shuts out the Giants right before halftime, and it kills pretty much any momentum they think is going to happen for this one. The second half of this game is the 49ers doing what the 49ers do. The first half was cute. It's time to stop being cute. They take out the hammer, and they start bashing the Giants' brains in. They hit them multiple times. They hit them left, they hit them right, they hit them up the middle, and they destroy them with the run game. The 49ers run the ball in the course of this game, the entire game, 39 times. The plan was simple, and the plan worked. Because guess what? If there's one thing that Kyle Shanahan believes in, it's the violence. Kyle Shanahan loves the violence, and he shows it every single week. That's why that's why he has Christian McCaffrey. He believes in the violence. To him and John Harbaugh and, well, all the Harbaugh brothers. 39 carries. 4 of them were for a loss. Every other play, so that's 35 runs that were positive statistically. Either a 1-yard gain or a 2-yard gain. But in a lot of these cases, and I did the numbers on it, I went back and I counted because, I'm bad at math. 13 of the runs, so 13 out of the 39 were over 5 yards. 6 of those were over 10 yards. They was tearing it up. Brian Robinson, Christian McCaffrey doing work. By the way, do you think the Commanders regret trading away Brian Robinson Jr., considering their running back situation currently? Have to wonder. The Giants' defensive line were forced to defend the run from like sideline to sideline, literally cover every inch of grass, and they just couldn't do it. That's essentially what happened. Sorry, I gotta fix this thing on my. Hold on. Sorry, I had to fix the camera. We'll see if it actually worked. There we go. Back in focus. They got destroyed because they got forced to defend end to end, and they just couldn't do it. Didn't realize this, but apparently the Giants have slowly been racking up the similar reputation to the Miami Dolphins, where they're terrible at defending the run. Did not realize that. I think most of the time it's because they're trying to get out there and rush the passer more often than anything. But yeah, the 49ers ran over the Giants. And until the back half of this game, because of the efforts of D. Winters and Tatum Bethune, who both play linebacker for the 49ers, and I'm sure Fred Warner is up in the box, super proud of these guys because they were tearing it up. They defend anything that was under 5 yards or anything that was under 10 yards on the sticks. They were cracking it. They were covering it up. It was either not getting completed or they were getting hit as soon as they caught the ball. And that pays big dividends against a rookie quarterback. And now it's forcing him to throw the ball further down the field, which means because of the 49ers' good coverage, that sets up their defensive line to be able to go out there and get a bunch of pressures. And that's essentially what happened in the middle portion of this game. The Giants did, I'm not going to lie, they rallied. They got back-to-back touchdowns in their final 2 drives of this game, but it was too little too late, as you can see in the final score there. But yeah, amazing. Jackson Dart's mobility throughout the course of this game was pretty dope because it wasn't like him going out there and juking players. It was him bailing on plays when the play was dead and taking what he could get and keeping the drives alive as much as he could. A lot of intelligence shown by Jackson Dart throughout the course of this one because the 49ers defense is that nasty, especially now that they got Robert Salah back. But yeah, combined with some really surprising accuracy from a rookie quarterback, it is hard to believe that the Giants have only won 2 games this season. Don't forget, one of those 2 games was versus those previously mentioned Chargers, which is weird. Every week that passes by, the Chargers beat the Chiefs in week 1 and lost to the Giants in week 4. That is how football goes, baby. That's why we love the game. That's why we love the game. Moving on, Bears Bengals in this one. This shit was crazy. So the Bengals. Anybody knows that the Bengals are basically in the same place they were last year? They had a rough start to the season, which is what happens when Joe Burrow's in there at the starting QB position, like the first month of the season because he's hurt. They spend a tough time like trying to find their footing. And then they kind of pick up the pace in terms of like becoming a high-scoring offense like towards the middle part of the season. And then they keep that pace going, but somehow continue to lose the games in weird ways. And when I say the weird ways I mean they don't fucking play any defense. They're back to what they were doing last year. It is crazy because the first half of the season, it feels like they wasted all their good defensive efforts when Jake Browning was in there playing quarterback. Because now they couldn't stop me or you, any person that is watching this podcast. If you and I were out there playing NFL offense, the Cincinnati Bengals could not stop us. We might go for a career day out there. But yeah, that's essentially what happened in this one, in case you couldn't tell based off the score. I will say this. Another bad day for the Bengals. Another bad day for the Bears defense, which is weird because they were starting off the season turning the ball up, forcing a bunch of turnovers, which is key to have a good defense and having a good offense too, right? They're trapped in. I don't know, man. I get it. People don't like Mike Brown. He's super cheap. Are they trapped in some kind of weird purgatory? Like they got to be cursed. Like there has to be. Whatever. Anyway, if anybody knows about a Bengals curse, let me know. Other than the curse of being a broke boy, which I think is... I'm going to just start spreading that rumor. The Bengals are cursed by being a broke boy. I would know. I got like a whole podcast about it. Anyway, the opening touchdown of this game is... opening kickoff of this game is a touchdown. If you bought a ticket, you got your money's worth on this one. Opening play of this... I think that... I should have checked that. I can't remember the last time that there was an opening kickoff touchdown. But yeah, it's super rare. But wait, it gets better. The Bears follow up the opening kickoff touchdown with their best drive of the entire season. They ran 2 double passes, a super late backside screen that set them up for a first down. They ran a second double pass that ended up being a touchdown pass to Caleb Williams inside the 5-yard line, and they looked so smooth. They looked so smooth in this game. It was pretty absurd. I can't lie. They had a lot of moments where Caleb looked like the guy that we were told he was supposed to be. The Bengals were getting all the explosive plays, though, throughout this one. Like I said before, this was too bad. We had a couple of, we talked about the Broncos and the Texans. That's too good. That's two really top-end, high-end defenses. We talked about the Bengals and Bears. We're talking about the bottom of the barrel in defenses overall. T. Higgins was going off on these boys. The Bears haven't forced a turnover in the last 2 games, and you can see how it affects their defensive presence out there on the field. They're a defense that has to end possessions. They are not capable of stopping you for 10 consecutive plays, right? Eventually, their zones get overwhelmed in a lot of situations, and they end up giving up big chunk plays down the field. They had some great moments defending the run. They even forced a fumble thanks to Austin Booker, who is the guy. If you remember last season when the Bears were on Hard Knocks, Austin Booker ended up getting hurt for a little while. And the Ryan Poles, the GM for the Bears, was super excited about what Austin Booker was capable of doing. He ended up tearing up his knee towards the end of the last season, and he just came back from said knee injury. So this was his first game back, and he forces a fumble, which I'm sure makes everybody who drafted him feel really good about themselves. Also, he played lights out in this game, man. But yeah, that was the thing there. Joe Flacco got strip sacked, which is clutch. Austin Booker, playing his first game of the season, gets a sack instantaneously because the Bears' defensive line has had a ton of injuries across it. The second half, the Bears' D-line was cooking, and eventually their defense followed, man. Tremaine Edmonds almost hits a game-breaking 96-yard pick six at one point during this game, but they said he was down by contact when he caught the ball, so it was pretty tough. Also, that's a turnover generated by the Bears. Really weird. They generated a turnover, they win the game. The Bears ended up punting after they spot the ball at the 5-yard line with 2:20 left in the game. The Bears are leading 41-27. They had Monangai balling up front. The Bears somehow stumbled into 2 number 1 running backs, and that seems to be the move if you want to have a good offense in the NFL right now. You need 2 good tight ends. You need 2 starting caliber running backs, 2 guys that could be a true number 1 on any given team. They drafted Monangai, so I'm sure they're really pumped about that. But overall, don't forget the Bears also have good wide receivers too. The Bengals score in 3 plays and get the 2-point conversion. People start getting a little worried there. The Bengals recover an onside kick with a slight grazing of the ball on a Bears defensive lineman's foot, and that's their first recovered onside kick since 2019. Remember that? The time before the plague. I mean, COVID. 2019. What a time. What a day. I think I was 70 pounds lighter than I am right now. What a time. Drank a lot of whiskey since 2019 and hope I get to drink a lot more. But yeah, they first recovered onside kick in 6 years. Pretty impressive. By the way, that 2019 game they recovered an onside kick in, they lost. It was to the Dolphins. They lost that game too. So the Bengals get the ball on their own 40-yard line, and they score in 6 plays. The efficiency is crazy, especially considering this is all being done by Joe Flacco, ladies and gentlemen. Remember him? Remember Joe Flacco, the guy? Anyway, the old guy doing the young guy thing. So that's pretty impressive, I think, overall, just in general. I feel like, I don't even know if he's actually even eligible for this. He did play last season. Joe Flacco should get comeback player of the year. Ultimate comeback. He went from backup QB for was it the Browns? He was with the Colts last year. Backup QB with the Colts to starting QB for 2 different NFL franchises to the point where he got traded. Interesting. What a time. I can't wait to see the E60 on this season for Joe Flacco. It's going to be dope. Anyway, Joe Flacco's been diming them up all game. The Bears get 54 seconds to take back the lead at this point during the game. This is the perfect time for Caleb Williams to do what a lot of people expect him to do, and that's crumble under this pressure. Instead, he avoids the Bengals' pressure for 4 different plays in a row until he finds Colston Loveland, who catches a ball and then also catches a little bit of luck, courtesy of Jordan Battle, who tried to shoulder down a tight end in the middle of the field with the game on the line. And when he used that shoulder, Colston Loveland, being significantly heavier than him, kept running all the way to the game-winning touchdown in this one. And the Bears lead by 5. Joe Flacco runs out of magic on a short, well, not a short field. They have a couple of seconds left on the clock. And Joe Flacco, despite the fact that he was only 30 yards passing away from 500 yards passing on a singular game in the NFL at the age of 41, and T. Higgins caught just about everything under the sun in the course of this game and had one of his best games ever as a wide receiver. He finished with 7 catches for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns, including that second touchdown that actually injured him. It is not enough to beat the mighty, mighty Chicago Bears. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, the Bears take one step closer on that anamorph transition board towards becoming the Lions. We saw great offensive potential from a team that I don't think anybody would have thought last year will be able to score 47 points, let alone this year. It has been pretty insane. Dirt Bob Squareneck just said he won it last year. 2 years ago. He's talking about for Joe Flacco. But I think he can win it again. That'd be crazy just to be Joe Flacco's legacy. Super Bowl champion. I think he had the first $100 million contract in NFL history, and then also 2-time winner of Comeback Player of the Year, mainly because he just keeps coming back to play football. That'd be crazy. Isn't it enough? The Bears, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild to see the development and the growth of the Chicago Bears. I understand we're not talking about like a lockdown, like steel curtain type defense that they put up 47 points on, but this is a game against a bad defense, and they went out there and did what good offenses do, and that is put up points. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. They even got DJ Moore, like a huge catch at one point. You know when DJ Moore's getting in the mix and Caleb Williams is the quarterback, shit's happening. Shit's cooking. But yeah. They got carried by Monungai in this one. Hold on a second. He can win again. Dirtbot Squareneck updating me that Joe Flacco can win again because Chad Pennington did. Remember Chad Pennington? Most of you people who are watching this podcast do not know who the fuck Chad Pennington is, and that's okay. He was a really cool quarterback for the Dolphins back in the day. Anyway, Caleb Williams. Hesitation, kind of disappearing a little bit. It feels like he's getting way more comfortable in this offense, which is a problem for somebody else, luckily, because he's in the NFC. But yeah, they look smoother. They're getting confidence in their running game. The offensive line is coming together like a lot of people thought it was going to. It would be nice if they got some semblance of a defense, but I think, baby steps. Maybe the defense develops a little bit more as the season goes along. Maybe they get a little bit healthier. Because that's been one of the bigger problems. They've been giving up a lot of yards because their secondary is really banged up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The sad part about this game is the Bengals have pretty much fucked away any opportunity they have to win the AFC North. And honestly, they have an outside shot at getting the wild card, maybe if they are lucky. They would need a lot of things to break their way. This is the back half of the season. There's only 9 games left in the regular season. And I know, look, we've already talked about how much has happened in the last 9 games of this season. The fact of the matter is, they'd have to like run the table to be able to get in contention for the AFC wild card. But we'll see. Technically, the Texans are still in the hunt for the AFC wild card spot. In the hunt. What a magical term. It gives you hope. Everlasting hope. But yeah, the Bengals issue is pretty clear. Because it's the exact same issue that they had last season, where they can't defend anyone. Tough look. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to talk about that game anymore. I will talk about another sad game. The heartbreaker part of obviously was that the Bengals take another step back away from being a successful team in the NFL. Because I think we're all rooting for Joe Flacco. Wouldn't it be crazy if Joe made it to the playoffs? Wouldn't it be crazy? Then they have to make a decision about whether Joe Burrow takes Joe Flacco's spot. That'd be crazy. I would love to see that decision making from Zach Taylor, who, by the way, we can talk about the defense, but looking bad. But he got a quarterback in there that can go out there and throw that thing around, and they're putting up points. I think that saves your job in the NFL. People are way more concerned about offense than they are about defense until defense gets really inconvenient for you winning games like this situation. Moving on, Thursday Night Football happened. I don't know if you guys know, but this guy named Lamar Jackson is back. He's pretty good at football. And he I wouldn't say he reminded. He showed the Dolphins that he's very good at football. I would like to detail how the Dolphins lost by 22 points in this one and why they are now looking for a new general manager, because he's the one that got fired on Halloween, opposite of what I predicted. Last week, I said it was going to be Mike McDaniel and that he'd probably be in Green Bay, Wisconsin, working with the Packers by the time Monday rolled around. But that is not what happened. The Dolphins run 7 plays, score a field goal on their first drive, and then a wide receiver fumbles inside of their own red zone. So that should tell you a lot. The following drive, Mike McDaniels gives shades of a game plan that they showed versus the Falcons, which is where they ran the ball heavily. They tried to rotate Devon Achane in and out so that he was getting, so that he wasn't like the only running back out there taking a bunch of carries and stuff like that. And it was heavily focused on them running the ball. Devon Achane accounts for 44 total yards on the Dolphins' third drive until they forgot how to play football. Larry Borum, who, if you guys don't know, he's the right tackle. He used to play for the Bears last season. He plays for the Dolphins now. He false starts on a 4th and 1, probably because the Ravens were destroying the Dolphins off the edge, which is they've been doing a very similar tactic that the Dolphins have been doing. The Ravens' run defense has been so bad that they've had to basically recruit a safety to play another linebacker spot. And they used Kyle Hamilton off the edge. So Kyle Hamilton was blowing up Devon Achane and Ollie Gordon and any other running back who was back there as well. That was the big part. That was the big thing to take away from this game. That overall, they were stepping up, lining up in the box, and they were beating him off. He was getting beat off the line because obviously Kyle Hamilton's faster than Larry Borum, who's a massive man who moves very quickly for his size, but he's not moved very quickly for Kyle Hamilton's size. But yeah, this forces a 25-yard field goal that Riley Patterson missed, and that would be okay if he hadn't missed a 49-yard field goal. If he hadn't made a 49-yard field goal like 20 minutes ago, like prior to them taking this field goal. So it would have been totally different if he had just He hit a 49-yarder, missed a 25-yarder. Then easy come, easy go, I guess. Are you starting to see the pattern here? The Dolphins are the silly game of the week, the silly goose game of the week, pretty much. And this is the type of shit the Dolphins have been dealing with all season. You know what I mean? Anyway, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, if nobody's surprised, they score really easily. Derrick Henry's back. Not back to like 2,000-yard form, but guess what? He's back to being, I'm the biggest motherfucker on this field that runs really fast, and you're going to have to do a lot to get me down on the ground. I'll say this, the Dolphins started off defending the run using the heavy box, and then the Ravens did the thing where they were like, I don't know if you've heard of our quarterback. He's quite good at throwing the pigskin, as they say. And he started diming him up. That was pretty much it. The Dolphins, remember, lost their number one corner, Storm Duck, last week for the rest of the season. He'd only played 2 games this season, which is kind of brutal for his first season as the number one corner for the Dolphins. But yeah, they were in single high a lot because they were using their safety in the box to go out there and make tackles in the run game. Obviously, you want to do that when you're playing up against Derrick Henry. And then the Ravens did the thing where they were like, we have Zay Jones and we pass block pretty well against your guys, and we're just going to have Lamar Jackson do the thing. And he actually did the thing with Mark Andrews, who, by the way, big time back. Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns in this game. Zay Jones had a couple of crazy jukes where he kind of like teleports, like 2 defenders are colliding at one point, and then all of a sudden Zay Jones is to the left of one of those defenders and keeps running. But yeah, the Ravens scored their second touchdown. Speaking of colliding defenders, Mark Andrews ran a crossing route. Zay Jones ran a Zay Flowers. I don't know why I said Zay Jones. Zay Jones plays for the Cardinals. They run crossing routes. The 2 DBs run into each other. Mark Andrews is wide open and touchdown. The Dolphins' final drive of the half gave them a chance to tie the game up, but it looked like a bad throw on like a drag route type situation going out towards the right-hand corner or a misread on an option route. And I think maybe the wide receiver thought they were supposed to come back when Tua thought they should have just kept streaking because there was no safety help over the top. But yeah, it results in a 4th down turnover on downs and no points on the board, not even 3. So yeah, outside of the second TD drive, the Ravens really struggled on offense versus the Dolphins in the first half. So they showed up and did their thing, and then life happened, right? We talked about this. Life comes at you fast. Hey, you guys know that drill. You guys know the drill at this point. The Dolphins play good defense in the first half of this game. It's relatively close. You guys know what time it is. It's time for the Dolphins' union-mandated break. They take off for the entirety of the second half, as you can tell. 6 points on the board. Yeah, they get their union-mandated lunch break as they take every single time in the regular season that we've seen so far. They've never played a complete 4 quarters. Even when they beat the Falcons, they still didn't play complete 4 quarters. Those 2 4th down plays inside the Ravens' 15-yard line that led to turnovers and a missed field goal, that basically broke them in the second half of this. They had turnovers on a fumble. They had an interception. That was actually the only turnover that you can blame on Tua throughout the course of this game. The other 2 were like fumbles by wide receivers on screens, which is becoming way more common than in years past because obviously defensive players have a major emphasis like across the league in terms of like punching the ball out. There's way more fumbles. There has to be more fumbles than we're accustomed to seeing. We definitely expected the Dolphins to lose. From the Dolphins, especially in this game with like Lamar Jackson coming back and stuff like that. The debilitating part is that the Ravens didn't really like beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins beat the Dolphins, which is kind of what they've been doing all season. The multiple times the Dolphins defense cracked the Ravens, like in terms of like getting sacks and pressure. They did a great job at certain points covering. They had multiple drives where they were moving the ball and it ended due to a turnover. So any form of success that they had was like immediately taken away, which is always brutal. The Ravens defense was on point most of this game. And in the second half, they clearly had Tua focused on the pressure and not throwing the ball down the field. He had 3 fear sacks, and he even had the fear sacks where it's like you're focused on where the pressure is coming from, and so you're not even paying attention downfield. And he got an intentional grounding on a 3rd down for pressure that wasn't even going to hit him. But yeah, it was pretty bad. Anyway, they refused to set Mike McDaniel free. I'm pretty convinced that Stephen Ross is just going to make him finish coaching out the season for some like sick, twisted reason. What was I going to say? The Dolphins, their season's over. The Ravens starting to heat up a little bit. Couple of wins in a row, looking pretty good. Got Lamar Jackson back. Derrick Henry's back on track. Remember, the Ravens actually came in, the 3rd most difficult schedule this season? Is actually panning out that way. Strangely enough, also panning out really well for the Patriots, who have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Or the 49ers have the easiest schedule in the NFL. The Patriots have like the 3rd or 4th easiest schedule in the NFL coming into this season. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thursday Night Football sucked. I think that's 2 weekends that was 2 weeks in a row. Thursday Night Football has sucked. So don't worry, guys. You know what'll fix it? Playing in Germany this week. So you guys enjoy waking up at 8 a.m. To watch that game. I'll be asleep. I only wake up to watch one football player, and her name is Bailey, and she does not play this upcoming Sunday at 8 a.m. So that's my niece. Anyway. Moving on, we'll go to the next category. Finish this up, man. We're almost done. The oh my category. So, this one could have gone in a couple of different places. The oh my part about this is for 2 different reasons. The oh my is for how bad the Steelers' offense is. Now, you're probably saying, Ashton, the Steelers beat the Colts, the best team in the NFL, 27-20. How could they be bad? Here's how they could be bad. If you guys didn't hear, I'll give you a little glimpse into it. The Steelers' defense is not dead. Strangely enough, the one game where somebody does an over-the-top like funeral for the Steelers defense outside the stadium. It is the most alive that I've ever seen the Steelers defense in literally like 5 years. They generated 6 turnovers in this game, 2 interceptions, and I think they had like 3 strip sacks. Tyler Higbee had one. Jack Sawyer had an interception where like Higbee deflected it up into the air and it went behind Daniel Jones and Jack Sawyer caught it. It was one of those moments where it's just like, oh, the football guys have decided that all the karma that you've been avoiding in these previous games leading up to this are now all going to collide in this one game. You can't have a season where you just have all the good things happen all the time, Daniel. You know what I mean? Although I will say this, Daniel Jones has had a lot of bad seasons where all the bad stuff has happened to him every single game. So it's only fair that he has a season where all the good stuff happens in a bunch of games in a row. But it feels like all the bad juju hit him with the recoil in this one, and obviously everybody's going to be watching because there's people out there who their whole thing this season, when Daniel Jones started to succeed, they had to have Daniel Jones fail because it would mean that, because there's a lot of Giants fans who are convinced that Saquon Barkley was the problem with the Giants and why they weren't successful. There's a lot of people who are convinced that Daniel Jones was the problem and why they weren't successful, whereas all the evidence tends to point to something else that was the common denominator that is the problem. But yeah, no. Everybody's going to be watching and waiting patiently. I think they play the Jags this upcoming Sunday. You bet your ass people are going to be watching that. The Jags are coming off a really crazy win, and the Steelers are coming off a crazy, crazy loss that looks normal on the scoreboard. It is in part because their defense is literally like top 3 in the league, but the other part of it is the Steelers' offense is just that bad. The Steelers' offense is really legitimately that bad. And I think about it now, like the Bears. Oh my God, why is it losing focus all the time, man? Gonna fix it one more time. We'll see how this works. Hopefully this works. I sit back and I think about it, and you're not. Okay, yeah. And I sit back and I personally was like thinking about it, and I was like, the Bears scored 40-something points on the Bengals. And I hate to do transitive property on like football, but like these happen like basically back-to-back weeks, right? The Steelers struggled to score 30-plus points. The Bears were able to get 47 points off the Bengals. And I think that is also something you can say is an indicator of how bad the Steelers' offense is, man. They really struggle to run the ball consistently, despite the fact that Jaylen Warren finished this game with 2 rushing touchdowns. They heavily depend upon their 21 personnel stuff. Obviously, Darnell Washington is having his breakout season, along with Pat Freiermuth doing his thing. DK Metcalf was like non-existent in this game, according to Aaron Rodgers. And I'm telling you this right now, as a Seattle Seahawks fan, and for all the other 12s out there, you know what's happening. If you guys don't know, DK Metcalf went to a very special school. He went to Ole Miss, right? He went to Ole Miss with Chris Carson, who, shout out to him, he messed his neck up to the point where he couldn't play NFL football anymore. He used to play for the Seahawks too. But they also went to school with another guy, A.J. Brown. If you think it's bad in Philly with the stuff going on with A.J. Brown, some of y'all just haven't been paying attention to how bad it can get when DK's not getting the ball. That's when he starts. All those jokes that people like to make about like DK Metcalf, like just randomly assaulting dudes on the field. There's a reason he starts randomly attacking people. It's usually when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And I think, that time may be coming soon. And you better just hope that your favorite defensive player is not the one lined up across from DK Metcalf. Anyway, terrible day for the Steelers. They still won the game. They got 6 turnovers, meaning that they took away more than half of the Colts' possessions. And they got less than 3 touchdowns out of it. I will say this. Colts defense is awesome. The moral of the story here is Daniel Jones had a bad game. And he's going to move on from it. I will say this. There was one time throughout the course of this game that the Colts fucked up. After the second turnover, because the crazy thing is the turnover started like instantaneously. It wasn't just Daniel Jones. The Steelers' first possession, they end up punting the ball away. the punt returner has the ball bounce into his shoulder pad, and a gunner picks up the ball at like the 20-yard line. The Steelers don't score on that possession. They get the ball like, I say 20-yard line. They got the ball in like the 10-yard line, got it down to the 1, and still couldn't score. The Colts ended up getting the ball back. They had like a 10-play drive that comes to an end off of a strip sack, and that's what starts the cascading of crazy plays. The Steelers defense goes out there, goes crazy on them the entire game. And the offense can't really do too much about it. The only thing that the Steelers defense didn't do was score the touchdowns for the offense, and that probably would have helped them out a lot because they were really struggling to move the ball in general. If it wasn't already spoon-fed to them inside the 40-yard line or inside the 20, they weren't making it happen. But yeah, that happened, man. It's deceptive. It's a highly deceptive score, very similar to what the Chargers and Titans game looks like, but when you go back and you look at this, 27 Steelers 27, Colts 20, remember the Steelers generated 6 turnovers, and that's all they could muster. Pretty bad overall. I will say this, the Colts also got a turnover like really late in this game. A wide receiver tried to jump over a tackler, and the safety for, I want to say it was Nick Cross, who, love that guy, super dope. He's probably going to be our Who Player of the Week at some point. But yeah, he runs across to this wide receiver while he's in midair. He punches the ball out. Like, who thinks to do that? You know what I mean? But yeah, that's pretty much what happens in this one. I don't really want to go through all these stats that I had written down. But yeah, the Colts had 3 first half turnovers and 3 in the second half. You can't win football games in the NFL like that. Although they almost did. That's all I can say. They stopped running the ball at one point, and that was the issue. That was my biggest takeaway, my biggest problem. At one point, they tried to abandon the run, which means that they were taking the ball out of Jonathan Taylor's hands to put it into Daniel Jones' hand. Not a great idea, even with the new Daniel Jones. Not the greatest idea on the planet. But yeah, moving on. Other games in the oh my category. The Carolina Panthers did it again. Lil Bryce is back from his high ankle sprain. Must be nice to be young. Some players in the NFL, they get high ankle sprains and they're out for the entire season because sprain does preclude that you tore something, but it's just about the degree in which you tore it. And the Panthers had they made the tough decision to make Chuba Hubbard running back number 2 and move Rico Dowdle back to running back number 1 for their offense. And this is the second season in a row, back-to-back seasons, where the Panthers have switched who their number 1 running back is mid-season. Last year, Miles Sanders got highlandered by Chuba Hubbard, and now the tradition continues. Chuba Hubbard is highlandered by Rico Dowdle. Interesting. Now because Rico Dowdle came from Dallas and Miles Sanders went to Dallas. He's the backup to Javonte Williams. Funny. Strange cycles. Anyway, the Panthers are rocking their throwbacks, as I like to call them, the Acme Packers uniforms, which nobody asked for. I'm sure there's some random person who's in Green Bay, Wisconsin. They're like, I really missed the team when Bart Starr was on it and he wore those hideous uniforms. But yeah, Nike did the Leatherheads helmet thing that they did for Notre Dame, where they make the helmets look like Leatherhead helmets, which is interesting. The other thing that was weird about it is, and I'm sure some of you saw it, but I'll detail it. As you know, some players in the NFL wear guardian caps, which are extra cushion that attach to the helmet of the players to help with mitigating like micro concussions and just concussions in general, right? Romeo Doubs is like the most prominent wielder of the guardian cap. He wears like a jumbo-sized one that makes him look like a bobblehead or a guy in big head mode in NBA Jam. And I definitely just dated myself. I did not grow up playing NBA Jam. I had to play NBA Jam on my PlayStation 2 on a revamped version of it after they brought it back from the grave. But anyway, moving on. Romeo Doubs is wearing a super bobblehead guardian cap. And the guardian cap that he's wearing looks like a Leatherhead cap. Like they put the same design on his guardian cap on top of his helmet that looks like a Leatherhead helmet. So like a Leatherhead cap on top of a NFL football helmet that looks like a Leatherhead cap. There's some kind of joke in there. I just don't know what it is. I thought it was funny. Also, yeah, they also had these weird leather designed gloves. Like they gave the blue, like they had these dark navy blue jerseys with your number in the center with like a black outlining on it or white outline so you could see the number. And they made gloves that were the blue color of the jerseys. And then they made gloves that were the brown color of the leatherhead helmet and the pants that the Packers wore. It was weird. I hope to never see that again, by the way. But I probably will because they probably sold out of it in the Packers store. I should have checked before I did the show. There's a fumble on a wide receiver screen, and it feels like fumbles are up. Like I've said before, fumbles are way up. If there's one thing you need to invest in, fumbles are up. Then Edgerrin Cooper on a 4th and short play from the Carolina Panthers. After they recover this fumble, they're driving. The Edgerrin Cooper is chasing down Bryce Young, who is run out of the pocket. He's running towards the Carolina Panthers sideline. And before he gets out of bounds, he shoves him so hard that he falls down to the ground face first. And then they jump Edgerrin Cooper on the Panthers sideline, and he's smiling while he's getting jumped. So silly goose personal foul, 15 free yards, plus they converted the 4th down. Anyway, the Panthers get back to the mission at hand. They get back to establishing the run. They get the Packers to the 15-yard line, and then I'm pretty sure Xavier McKinney, who is stupid good already, also showed that he, too, studies the film. So this is what frustrates me about NFL offenses sometimes when, something's working, and then they deviate away from it. So they were killing them with the Rico Dowdle runs up the middle, and then they decide that they're going to let Lil Bryce throw the ball, right? He's at, the 15-yard line, which is enough space that you can run some deeper set routes, and you can get some more time. You don't have to make as quick a read as you would if you're on the 5-yard line or something like that. But anyway, Xavier Legette, we've seen this happen multiple times this season. Xavier Legette runs a 9 route up the right-hand side, and Bryce throws it to the back of the defensive back's jersey so that Xavier Legette can either moss the defensive back or run through them to get the ball and get a PI call or catch it. And then they end up on the 1-yard line for pass interference. This time he floated a little too close to the middle, and Xavier McKinney, the safety for the Packers, also read it instantaneously. The second the ball gets snapped, you can watch it on film in slow-mo. He takes 2 steps towards Xavier Legette because he's the only person running a deep route. And then as soon as Bryce leans back with his shoulder to throw the ball, he starts just running towards Xavier Legette, and the ball lands right in his hands. So, tough times. But yeah, the Packers defense, still nasty. Don't forget that. The final score in this game was 16-13 for a reason. But yeah, the Panthers defense was the real star of the show in this one, and the offensive line too, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. They got pressure throughout all 4 quarters, which is extremely difficult to do in the NFL. Most teams can only get it in 2 quarters throughout the course of a game. The Panthers got it the entire game. They smothered Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had 21 carries. In total, 14 of those went for under 5 yards, and 14 out of those 6 out of those 14 that went for under 5 yards were for 0 or negative yardage. That tells you everything you need to know, right? He had 7 carries that went over 5 yards, and then everything else is either under 5 yards or a loss or 0, which is always tough, especially considering for what everybody likes to say about the Packers with Jordan Love, their team runs through Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is an integral part that when they are able to run the ball with one of the best running backs in the NFL, that's when Jordan Love is able to go out there and shine and be himself. The pressure leads to more passing, which somehow played into the Panthers' plan. Somehow it was so weird. The Panthers' coverage was amazing throughout the course of this game. Trayvon Moehrig, who's one of their safeties, picks off Jordan Love in the middle of the 3rd quarter. And it sets up the Panthers in pretty good positioning because it's inside their own red zone. This leads to, you guessed it, a short field touchdown from Rico Dowdle. And we need to talk about something, guys. We need to talk about something that's very important. There was a penalty thrown after this Rico Dowdle touchdown. It was for unsportsmanlike conduct. Rico Dowdle scored a touchdown, and we've talked about this for I feel like 3 weeks in a row. Rico Dowdle scored a touchdown, and then put his hands above his head, and gyrated his hips forward twice. And then a referee threw the flag. This is a great travesty. You know good and goddamn well you're supposed to get 3 pumps. You're supposed to get 3 pumps. They gave him a penalty for doing 2 pumps, and I feel like at this point, I feel like the league has to come out and address this. Stephon Diggs did it. He got 3 pumps, no flag. Stephon Diggs did it last week with the entire Patriots offense out on the field. They all did 3 pumps, and there was no flag. And Rico Dowdle does 2. He gets a penalty, and it bumps back to PAT, and then they miss the PAT. I don't know if you saw the final score or not. It could have been pretty important if it all came down to it. But, yeah, man, I feel like the league's got to come out and say something. I'll also say this much. There was it DeMarcus Lawrence was mic'd up for the Seattle Seahawks game versus the Commanders. They went up to the ref, and they asked him how many pumps. He said, I always thought it was 3. And then DeMarcus Lawrence does I'm assuming DeMarcus Lawrence has children. He does the most dad thing of all time. He's like, what about if you bring it around town, which is a SpongeBob joke, right? Bring it around town. And the ref was like, oh, you got to be careful with that. And I'm like, that's true. I could see how a ref, if you're not paying fully attention, you see that and you're like, that's like 4 pumps. Flag. How many pumps can NFL players do? It should be 3. Should be 2, actually. It should be 2. I think the 2 pump rule is cool, man. It is also funny that this skit has the show's been off the air for like 7 years. And they actually had Keegan-Michael Key respond and say that they got to like record a new skit because clearly the 3 pump rule has changed. And I don't think that's true. I think the league's out of control. Anyway, we gotta rein these things in. These are important things. The Packers get off to a nice drive after this one, after that touchdown from the Carolina Panthers. This is the first time in this half they actually are successful. They eventually find themselves on a 3rd and short, running a screen that Trayvon Moehrig blows up deep inside of Panthers territory. They go for it on 4th down, and the Panthers pass rush forces Jordan Love to run all the way to the left-hand side, and just before he goes out of bounds, he turns his hips and he throws the ball to the opposite side of the end zone. And if you are a football fan, you assume that this is going to be a touchdown because Jordan Love is just that caliber of quarterback at this point during the NFL. And turns out the only person standing over there is a guy in a Carolina Panthers uniform. His name is Mike Jackson, and he dropped what probably would have been a pick 6, if not a huge return that would have broke this game wide open. Don't worry, it's a 4th down play, so it turns the ball over on downs. The Panthers defense just refused to show any type of hesitation. The Packers kept trying to run screens. The Panthers were blowing it up. The Packers kept trying to run the ball up the middle. The Panthers kept blowing it up. Derek Brown, shout out, showing that the big dudes can move fast because Derek Brown is like a goddamn beast, man. Every time they snap the ball and there's a running back running, if he hesitates for half a second, Derek Brown is smacking him every single time. The Panthers get the red zone, get to the Packers red zone at the 1 yard line. I'm sorry, the Packers get to the red zone at the Panthers 1 yard line, and Josh Jacobs gets a touchdown off of a no gainer. If you've ever seen that before, it's when the distance between the goal line and the line of scrimmage is basically like non-existent, but you still have to cross it like with an active play, and he gets a 1 millimeter touchdown, and it registers as a no gain for a 6-point touchdown. Anyway, that ties up the game more importantly instead of that stupid statistical anomaly. The Panthers get some more dimes from Bryce Young to get 2 first downs. This is on the potential game-winning drive. Rico, as he has done all season, busts it wide open, and he runs for 19 yards, and he gets Ryan Fitzpatrick, a rookie kicker, in position to hit his 2nd game-winning field goal of the season, and he nails it. And that is how the Panthers dismantled one of the best teams in the NFL. And one might say, with the Panthers sitting with the number of wins that they have, they too may be one of the best teams in the NFL. This is another weird loss for the Packers, where the defense showed up and the offense let them down, which is strange enough because a lot of people focus on the offense for the Packers because Jordan Love is there, but we still forget how much of this offense is still working on trying to get in sync with each other. Marcus Golden actually was like non-existent in this game for the vast majority of it. A lot of Romeo Dobbs action going on. So, sorry guys, it's that point of the show where I've been talking for too long. Anyway, Rico Dowdle finishes his game with 2 touchdowns, 130 yards total, which means in the last 5 games, Rico has rushed for 652 yards. He has 3 rushing touchdowns. That's just the last 5 games. In total, he has 735 yards in 9 games. He's only like 345. He's 345 yards from passing his career high, which he set last season. He is all but guaranteed, and if you can't tell from the way he's able to break these big runs for the Panthers, he is having the best season of his entire career, his young career, right? And it's kind of crazy that the Cowboys let him walk. You love to see ballers ball. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Bryce, once again, this is like the second time this has happened this season because it happened when they played the Falcons and won 30-0. He threw for under 200 yards and threw an interception. So, pretty crazy. This game made no sense in terms of like how they won, but then it made perfect sense when you watched it. The offensive line for the Panthers, in terms of like generating run lanes, was fucking flawless. They had some good pass protection throughout the course of this game. The defense was on point every single step of the way. They did a great job of creating difficult throwing lanes for Jordan Love, which set up the pass rush to be successful versus Jordan Love as well. They took away the most important part of the Packers offense, which is Josh Jacobs being successful on short down distances, and that set them up for the win. And they went out there and they took advantage of it. Every time the Panthers established a run, they fucking win the game. But yeah, the Packers offense let down the defense. This is like the second time it's happened this season, to be honest with you. But it's never been to this degree because I think everybody has like such a negative connotation associated with the Carolina Panthers, right? When you lose to the Panthers in such a manner, it makes you feel like your team sucks. But then you look at what the Panthers' record is and you're like, oh, yeah. This is one of the best runs the Panthers have been on in quite some time, since that one time with that one guy. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The battle for the NFC North continues, and I'll say this much: every single team in the NFC North looks like they are a playoff contender, and only 3 of them can go. So somebody's getting their heart broken, probably the Chicago Bears. Moving on, last category. We got, this is what we're here for. This is your first time checking out this section of the show or getting this far into the podcast. This is what we're here for, are the games that I truly, wholeheartedly believe make fans. These are the games that are so much fun, that are so amazing in terms of the plays that are made in it, the drama that happens towards the end. These are the games that make NFL fans and keep people coming back for more every single Sunday, that keep some of you waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch NFL football. But yeah, let's take it from the top here, finish this off strong. We got 4 games. We can power through this. We are way over our 1 hour allotment, but I will survive and so will you. Moving on, not gonna lie, Patriots, Falcons, they had them in the first half. If you didn't see this one, early on, the Falcons offense, they scored. They're down 21-0 almost immediately in this game because they can't really get too much pressure on Drake May until like right before halftime, and James Pierce picks up a scoop. I think it was Michael Floyd. He forces a fumble on Drake May. It's scooped up by James Pierce, their rookie defensive lineman. He runs it back all the way down to like the 5-yard line, and then 3 plays later, the Falcons score their first touchdown in this game off of a crazy Drake May one-handed snag where he toe taps out of bounds. You need to go back and watch this game just for the Drake London highlights. I don't know why I said Drake May. There's 2 Drakes, and they both had a great game. One had a better game than the other one because one ended up with a dove, and the other one just ended up with a bunch of amazing highlights, right? The Patriots did exactly what you expect. The Patriots have not given up a 50-yard individual rusher this entire season. And for the second week in a row, Bijan Robinson found himself squarely in the crosshairs of every defensive player on the other side, and they shut him down. He was really helpful in the passing game. He had a couple of key catches that led to first downs and stuff like that. But in the first half of this one, they tried to run the ball. There was no space. They tried to run the ball to the outside where Bijan usually gets a lot of open space. What was out there was a bunch of defensive backs standing at the line of scrimmage, and they were pushing them out of bounds, which was kind of astounding because it happened every single time. Usually, like you talk about like good defenses in the NFL, every once in a while there's like one big play that happens and then they kind of shut everything else down. The Patriots, it's just like, it's like, do you gain 2 yards or do you get 0? You know, that's what it's looked like every single time they defend the run. And it doesn't even take the defensive linemen or the linebackers to do it. Their safeties are crashing so hard to defend the run. And it pays off for them at the end of the day because it forces teams to become one-dimensional. If you don't have a quarterback that's good enough for your offense to go one-dimensional, you lose. That's kind of what happens. It was looking pretty bad, like I said, until James Pierce got that fumble recovery and scored and helped helped the Falcons score. Michael Penix throws 2 dimes in the first half of this one to Drake London because they scored on their first drive of the game and makes it 21-14. They were down 21-7, and it looked like it was about to be bad going into halftime. The Falcons were back in action after that after that second touchdown from Drake London. By the way, the Patriots' run game did not have Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, or any other veteran running back. Literally, the 2 running backs that the Patriots used the entirety of this game were 2 rookies, and they looked pretty good. Like Travion Henderson and Terrell Jennings, who, by the way, Terrell Jennings got his first NFL rushing touchdown, and I think Ramondre may be out of a gig when he comes back from his toe injury because there's going to be more games where both of those guys get more carries, and there's very few plays where they look like they just were absolutely terrible when it came to pass blocking and stuff like that, and that's what's going to make the difference in this one. So back to how insane both of these defenses are. The Patriots scored their final points of this game in the third quarter with 6 minutes and 26 seconds to go. That was it. In the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, they scored a field goal, and that was it for the rest of the game. They had one drive that they scored in the second half, and they got a field goal out of it. Their second possession ends with a Jesse Bates interception, so it tells you just how crazy it kind of gets towards the end. Bijan Robinson had like a crazy one-handed Moss catch for a first down, and then the play immediately after that, Drake London Mosses Christian Gonzalez and then lands on him and concusses him, and he's out for the rest of the game. And that kind of changes some stuff for him offensively. The Falcons keep driving, and Drake London gets his 3rd touchdown of this game. That was one-handed snag too, so kind of the move of the day. Anyway, Randy Moss will be proud. I'm sure he watched the game somewhere. He had to be super pumped about it because Drake London is very similar in build, but not necessarily in like play style to Randy Moss. But overall, man, the Falcons looked like they were coming back in this one. They had all the momentum in the second half. Their defense had finally started locking up like we've become accustomed to them doing. And then with the score of 24-23, it's time to kick a PAT. And you're sitting there and you're like, oh, Ashton's bringing it up for some reason. It's because they missed it. So, yeah, that was with 3 minutes left. The Patriots offense really starts off by like kind of dealing it to pretty much everyone. And as the Falcons defense kind of clamped down throughout the course of this game, this is like the totality of what the Patriots offense looked like throughout this one. They were throwing the ball around to a bunch of people. They got Demario Douglas a bunch of catches. Stephon Diggs got a bunch of catches. But as time went on throughout the course of this game, fewer and fewer targets were open. And the only group of people who were out there that were pass catchers that were really open the entirety of this game were Hunter Henry and why am I blank? I said Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry and then Austin Hooper. I don't know why I blanked on his name. The 2 tight ends for the Patriots were the only consistent pass options in the second half, essentially, for the Patriots. And I bring that up because the Patriots were on a drive where they could have iced this game away, and they get down to the point where they have to start running the ball. They get stuffed twice. And then on third down, they decide they're going to pass it, right? It's third and 6, essentially. They decide they're going to pass it. They have Austin Hooper run an out-breaking route towards the sideline. He catches it. He's wide open, and they finish off this game. This is This is brutal because the Falcons did get one more opportunity on offense to get the ball back and go out there and potentially just get a field goal to get the lead. But they get down to fourth down, and then they get a penalty from an unexpected snap because there's a lot of rotations that have been happening for the offensive line for the Falcons. So there's a little bit of a chemistry issue. They snap the ball while Michael Penix is trying to make an adjustment to the offense. He catches it. And then immediately, our guy, Milton Williams from the Patriots, bursts through the line of scrimmage. And instead of taking the sack and then having to face fourth down with like 4th and 15, he tries to throw the ball towards Bijan. Bijan's on the opposite side of where he throws it. And it ends up being intentional grounding. And the Falcons end up having to punt, and it sets up that Patriots drive where they take a bunch of time off the clock and they throw the ball to Hunter Henry, and they run the game. They ice the game with a bunch of knees. It was tough, man. The Falcons have lost 3 games in a row now. They went from dominating the Bills on Monday Night Football to losing 3 games in a row. Don't forget, one of those games they had Kirko in charge when they were going up against the Dolphins, but the Patriots haven't lost since September. It is November, in case you forgot. They're eating the trash for sure. They're a really good team that is playing against a bunch of bad teams. You don't control your schedule in the NFL, as far as I know. Maybe there's like some kind of bribe system or whatever, but typically the NFL schedule is set via the formula, and the Patriots have now rotated into the easiest schedule in the entire league, essentially. And they beat the undefeated Bills, and they beat a really tough Falcons team with a record that doesn't reflect how good they are as a team. This definitely is making me think that the Patriots are like legitimate contenders to win the AFC East versus the Bills, which is crazy to say because the Bills are allegedly a Super Bowl contender. We'll see. Drake May has been on another level. There's been multiple instances where like basically after every single game is over, there is a stat or a tweet that comes out and people are like, Drake May and Tom Brady are the only 2 quarterbacks in the history of the Patriots to be able to pull this off. And it's usually about quarterback rating because he's got I think he's got like 4 games in a row where his QB rating has been over 100, which is really impressive considering he's played against some good defenses. The offensive half, though, that's what really sets you up for failure. When you go up against a bad offense and you get a bunch of opportunities to go out there and score. Combined with the Pats defense in the run game, they're looking like a real contender for not just like winning the division, man. Like they are a playoff team in my eyes. And if they don't make the playoffs, it will be a travesty. So we will see. It's a combination of the schedule plus their actual skill and ability that we've seen so far this season. So that's all I got on that one. Moving on, we got the Vikings versus the Detroit Lions. Holy shit, man. If you had tickets to this game, you got your money's worth. Actually, you may owe more money on how good this game was. Final score is 27-24. J.J. McCarthy pops off like he did in his debut, and the Vikings defense is back to their typical business of destroying everybody up front. Legitimately, I don't know if it was like the crispiness of the mics or like the parabolic mic guy was just on fire in the zone that day, but the sound that the Vikings make when they make contact with any offensive line sounds bone-crushingly hard. And you could definitely see the effects. A lot of the Vikings D-line, even when they weren't blitzing, were able to really get some good push and good pressure on the Lions. And that was pretty much the story of the game. Pressure, 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 pressure. The Vikings brought all the pressure and then some throughout the course of this game. They were blitzing linebackers pretty consistently. Blake Cashman tore them up all game, man. They got to the point where the Lions couldn't play Jahmyr Gibbs anymore because he couldn't pass block up front when the linebackers were blitzing. Pretty much every time he was in, they intentionally sent a linebacker in there. They give him the Alvin Kamara treatment. Like, if he stays back in the pass block, you're blitzing automatically. And it was creating pressure up the middle on Jared Goff, where a linebacker was able to run untouched by a guard or a center directly towards Jared Goff, affecting his throws. And as you guys know, just like every other human being in the NFL, Jared Goff is really bad against pressure. Like, legitimately, like the worst against pressure. Him and Dak Prescott are 2 quarterbacks where pressure and the ability to stay clean in the pocket are paramount to your team's ability to be successful. The Lions countered a lot of the pressure and a lot of the blitzes that the Vikings were sending by utilizing a bunch of runs. They ran up the middle to try and draw the attention of the D-line to create some hesitation for when they go out there and run the ball. David Montgomery didn't have very much success, and the Lions didn't have very much success overall in terms of being able to run consistently, but they did it because you have to maintain the air of balance, right? Like, they're a team that is hunting for big plays at all times. That's just how they are. And for the vast majority of this game, they were okay with taking losses in the run game because it means that the defense still had to focus on the fact that there's a small chance that they could hand the ball off to David Montgomery, a very good running back, and go out there and see what he can do. The first touchdown of this game did go to the Lions, and it was the most Lions touchdown you could possibly think of. A deep route to a tight end, Sam Laporta, I want to say it was like a post route or something like that. He catches the ball, and then he carries like 3 defensive backs into the end zone for the touchdown. Early on, J.J. McCarthy was diming up the Lions secondary until at one point he did throw an interception to Terrion Arnold, his first interception of the season, but it felt like J.J. McCarthy had a really good grasp of how to beat the zone defense that the Lions were playing deep down the field, while the Vikings were getting overall pressure from their entire line. The Lions in particular, as you can imagine, we're getting pressure from one guy. Their $100 million man, Aiden Hutchinson, was on fire vast majority of this game. The only thing that really slowed him down was the fact that the refs kept calling him for like bullshit penalties for like landing on the quarterback in a dangerous manner and all this bullshit or whatever. But the Vikings right tackle, he earned his money today. You go back and you watch that, most of the time, Aiden Hutchinson is actually beating him, and his recovery speed is what's pretty impressive. 17-14 is the score at halftime in this one. The Vikings show something that's pretty rare. They were able to carbon copy what the Chiefs did to the Lions that game that they played a couple weeks ago. And they basically took the exact same game plan and ran it to basically perfection. The Vikings are a team that chooses violence all game in this when they blitz every single quarter. They are running pressure they are running extra pressures every single quarter. They're doing a good job of getting pressure up the middle and off the edges as well. So it made it difficult to know where like the actual hits were coming from Jared Goff. Jared Goff gets sacked 5 times in this game, and 3 of those sacks were on third down. 2 of those third down sacks were in the Vikings red zone, and it pretty much killed the drive and forced them to kick field goals. The Lions fans were on a crazy roller coaster. So let's talk about like what happened in the back half of this game. So the Lions get pinned deep. David Montgomery fumbles the ball at the Lions 35-yard line. The Vikings recover it, and then they score 5 plays later off of a rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, running it into the end zone after he ran past one of their linebackers and then took a hit from one of their safeties to power into the end zone, right? Now the Lions fans are down 24-14. They're feeling down. They're bummed out about it. They've been down the entire game versus the Vikings, and it feels like the lead is just expanding. The next drive, the Lions score their first points of the game since the bottom in like the 6-minute mark of the second quarter, with about like 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. So almost 2 quarters worth of time between them scoring points in this one. And so now you're starting to feel yourself, you know what I mean? You cut the lead back down to 7. Yeah, like you feel pretty good about it. And maybe there's a chance that the Lions, because you've seen the Lions do crazier things. You've seen the Lions go out there. They have an explosive offense. They actually had some explosive plays in the course of this game. The fourth quarter starts after you get another start and drive. The fourth quarter starts and you get another drive that ends up with you getting in the field goal range. The field goal, though, is blocked, and then your nightmare of all nightmares comes to fruition. There's one player on the Minnesota Vikings defense that you do not want with the ball in his hands that plays defense. And if you are saying it at home, you know who I'm talking about. Isaiah Rodgers is the guy who picks up the blocked field goal and almost runs it back for a touchdown, which is like legitimately nightmare fuel incarnate if you're a Lions fan, because you saw what he did to the Bengals, right? Like he almost single-handedly beat the Cincinnati Bengals like 4 weeks ago. And he gets tackled, so you feel like you're getting a little lucky, right? And then they kick a field goal, and then you're down by 10 again off the Isaiah Rodgers blocked field goal. So instead of you getting 3 points, they get 3 points. They keep the lead back to where it was. But Jared Goff makes the best throw of this entire game with a 37-yard touchdown to Jameson Williams down the left-hand sideline. If you've never seen Jameson Williams, he's a mixture of being a liquid and a solid at the same time. Like, he's a person with a solid body, but for some reason is very fluid in the air. And he catches the ball in full extension, and then he continues to run while he's like completely parallel with the ground and dives into the end zone. And if you're a Lions fan, you're turned the fuck up off that, right? Now you're only down by 3 points. You're back in it. It's 27-24, but it's cool. J.J. McCarthy runs out the ball and you lose. So the Vikings are so fucking back, bro. It is crazy how good they look throughout the course of this game. Obviously, the Lions taking the loss is terrible for them, but at the same time, they're in the NFC North, and we'll talk about why that's important. The Vikings officially move into standalone second place in the NFC North because the Bears, Packers, and Lions all have 5 wins. So they're all tied for first. 9 weeks into the season, we still don't know what's going on. Moving on, last one here. This is one of the 2 games that I wrote notes down on this piece of paper for. Let me see if I can actually even use this right after I take a little sip of this water and we power through the end of this show. This is probably one of the more exciting games of the entire weekend, if not the most exciting game for some people. I know I enjoyed Bills Chiefs a little bit more, but these are 2 bad teams that matched up with each other, and they were duking it out. The Raiders are getting healthy again. They get Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer back. By the way, Michael Mayer got knocked unconscious on the field in that real scary kind of fencing concussion earlier this season during a special teams play. They get him back. They get Geno Smith back from injury. He's doing his thing, right? And they get Ashton Genty, and that's one of the key parts about this game versus the Jaguars. As we talked about this before, and I'll say it again. The Jaguars are a team that is heavily dependent upon generating turnovers. When they don't generate turnovers, they are not successful, right? They're very similar to the Chicago Bears, except the Bears' offense can kind of function without the defense generating turnovers. The defense needs to get turnovers so they can get stops, right? The Jaguars have one of the worst defensive performances of the entire season, and I'll tell you why. It's actually not as bad as that score shows you it is, because at the end of the third quarter in this game, and we look at the final score, it's 30-29 in overtime. At the end of the third quarter in this game, the score is 6-6. So all the action that you see on the scoreboard happens in one quarter, which, by the way, if you are a fan at this game, I would have lost faith early too and went home. But I get it. For the people who stuck around, and it sounded like there was a good chunk of people who stuck around to watch this one all the way through to the end. But for the most part, we saw the Jaguars get back to doing and getting the ball to the people that matter most in their offense. Travis Etienne, very important for the Jaguars to be able to run the ball to be successful. Max Crosby got bodied like throughout the course of this game. It was kind of surprising. He had 1 sack like towards the back half of this game, and I want to say it was in he got a sack in the fourth quarter during one of the drives from the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they focused on running the ball, which is part of the reason why the score was so low, vast majority of this one. Both of these teams were trying to run the ball. Ashton Genty did do the thing where, like, people hit him and they bounce off of him, like, multiple times throughout the course of this game. That was pretty impressive. But Trevor Lawrence has found his new number 1 wide receiver, and it's no longer Brian Thomas Jr., who seems to be... And I say this, he seems to be cursed with the ability of too much awareness. He knows where everyone is at all times, so he's very concerned about getting hit. I'll just say it for him. He's too smart, and that's what his problem is. Because every football player will tell you that part of being a football player is being a little bit crazy. Anyway, Parker Washington steps up big time throughout the course of this game. He has a career high. No, it was his second high because he had like a 130-yard game like last season. He had 90 yards off of 8 catches in the course of this game. No touchdowns or anything like that, which is kind of a bummer. But nonetheless, Parker Washington, if you guys don't know, I know Parker Washington, and I wouldn't say no. I covered Parker Washington for like 4 years when he was in high school, and I covered his sister when she used to play basketball in high school too, and now she's a scout for the Bears. Yeah, kind of cool. They're both in the NFL in different ways, but Parker Washington dominates this game for the Jacksonville Jaguars offensively. Pretty much every, and I'm assuming this is a ton of film study, because it felt like every time the Jaguars tried to run some kind of screen to Diami Brown, he was just getting hit as soon as he got the ball touched. As soon as he touched the ball, there was a linebacker there to take him out. Devin White was all over the place on this one for sure. Overall, the pass protection, pretty good from the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially by my account, because I've watched them play all season. This is one of the better performances they've had this year. A bunch of the drives did stall out though, because they got caught in some long third down plays. Like I said before, the Jacksonville Jaguars, their biggest issue was they kept getting blown up every time they tried to run a lot of screens. Right? They got stuffed on some runs early on, especially in between the tackles. That was one of the bigger problems for them as well. But these were two teams that both were coming off of a bye, and they look like they were refreshed. They look like they were two teams that had kind of hit like the reset button in terms of like how active they were on defense, how active they were on offense. Geno Smith was aggressive on offense, throwing the ball down the field vast majority of this game, after having some weeks where it felt like he really only felt comfortable throwing checkdowns, right? And now he's back to kind of throwing it around the yard a lot more, and looking pretty good doing it too. He looked really good throughout the course of this game, especially towards the end. It felt like he was actually outperforming Trevor Lawrence, which that's not saying much, but Geno Smith definitely outplayed Trevor Lawrence in this game, and Geno Smith still ended up losing. That happens. But like I said, third quarter, it's 6-6. The Jaguars put together their best drive of the entire game, and they actually end up getting a Trevor Lawrence touchdown to make it 13-9. Geno Smith and the Raiders finally respond with a touchdown of their own. They end up kicking a field goal to tie it up and go to overtime in this one, which is kind of crazy because both teams scored a touchdown in overtime, which up until very recently was not a thing. Up until 2 years ago, that was not a thing, that both teams get an opportunity to go out there, because it used to be if you score a touchdown, it is over. But now they go out there, the Jaguars score a touchdown on their first possession. The Raiders get the ball back with like 6 minutes to go. They drive down the field looking pretty good. They score a touchdown, even though there's some miscommunication on one of the plays where Geno thinks that he's supposed to pass the ball, but he's really... Geno thinks he's supposed to hand the ball off to Ashton, and it turns into a pass play. Whatever. They score a touchdown. They decide to go for two, and this is where it breaks the camel's back. They were on fire going into this overtime, because they were the ones who forced it with their offensive play, and then they cannot convert on the 2-point conversion, and they lose in overtime. Always a tough way to go out. They were a couple of seconds away from getting a tie if they had kicked a PAT. So better to go for the win, I guess, than settle for the tie for the most part. Moving on. Overall thoughts. The Jaguars are playing the Colts this upcoming weekend. I'll be surprised if that game is close. The Raiders are still the Raiders. They they picked up Tyler Lockett via free agency. They traded away Jacoby Myers, ironically enough, to the Jaguars. So that was, I'm sure that's happened before, but that had to be kind of interesting. Anyway, I would say, obviously the trade is due to Travis Hunter going on IR, so there's a hole in the wide receiver position, but to sit there and not be concerned about how the coaching staff views Brian Thomas Jr. with the drops, the seeming concern about catching the ball over the middle, and then trading for I think it was like a 6th-round pick or something like that to get Jacoby Myers from the Raiders, who's been asking for a trade for a while. To sit there and say that that's not going to affect Brian Thomas Jr.'s position on the team, it's hard to believe. But yeah, anyway, and the Jaguars now don't have Brendan Strange. He's on IR. He hurt his knee at one point. During this game, making a catch like over the middle, and he was like crawling on the turf with how bad it felt. And I don't know if you've ever seen that, but when a football player is doing that, it's usually pretty bad. Moving on. Probably the best game of the entire week. last game on the schedule, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs. What a lot of us think could be a preview for the AFC Championship game. I obviously don't think that. I think this is the Ravens' year. They kind of sneak up on people because they're playing the tougher schedule. They're going through the grit and the grind, and it's going to pay off for them when the playoffs roll around. But the Bills, and this is strange to say out loud, the Bills led like wire to wire in this one. At one point, it was tied up at 7-7, but it was like the Chiefs needed 3 possessions to score their first touchdown in this game. I asked a couple of questions, and you tell me if you know the answers to these. I have it written down somewhere on here. I asked myself a couple of questions. Do the Bills get it? And I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. Do the Bills understand what type of team that they are? It's really difficult when you're a team that has a ton of talent and you don't know how to you don't know how to display that you understand that you have a ton of talent, right? They, early on in the season, they were trying to pass the ball a ton because it was working against the teams that weren't as good in terms of the pass coverage, and so Josh Allen was getting off on a lot of defenses. And as time goes on, they start playing these tougher teams like the Atlanta Falcons, who are much better defensively than some of the teams they played earlier this year in the New York Jets. And it just didn't feel like, with the way that they were calling plays, they understood they are a running team. They are a running team that passes the ball effectively, right? And James Cook, not to say that he's the best player on their team, but when James Cook has the ball in his hands, they get more consistent offense. And consistency is always going to outweigh and be more valuable than getting the big explosive plays down the field. Also, his consistency sets up the passing ability of Josh Allen. This game, it felt like they got it. It felt like this game they understood what kind of football team that they are. And if they start doing that, we got a big problem. They ran the ball heavily with James Cook even when they were up big, and it paid off big dividends. And also, I understand why Brandon Beane does not give a fuck about signing wide receivers in free agency. He has Khalil Shakir. He has Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, who tore it up in this game, plus James Cook. They were on that quadrumvirate, if you will, instead of triumvirate. That quartet, they were killing it. It didn't matter. Keon Coleman wasn't really that big of a factor. Joshua Palmer was not that big of a factor. They were getting the exact looks that they wanted because obviously the league has moved towards 21 personnel being the predominant approach, where you have tight ends. You don't know which one is rotating out for a potential passing route. And it sets up the quarterback to have kind of like a secret check down on every single play, or have a secret seam route that the defense isn't accounting for, because the zone defenses are based around what the pre-snap look is like, right? And so if you can't tell who's running a route and who's sitting back and pass blocking, you're not going to be able to figure out how to properly align yourself prior to the snap of the ball, which is an interesting development, because if you haven't been stockpiling tight ends the last couple of years, then you're kind of screwed. But luckily for the Buffalo Bills, they definitely have, with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. But this was amazing. Josh Allen was in the zone vast majority of this game, and I think that's what really separated them. The score's a little deceptive. They were up by 10. At least 10 vast majority of this game, and the Chiefs really struggled deep down the field in terms of completions, and a bunch of that was due to the fact that Joey Bosa balled the fuck out in this game. I don't like Joey and what he stands for, what he believes and stuff like that, but to sit here and have me pretend that he didn't ball out of fucking control the entirety of this game, and it was game altering for how the Bills played the Chiefs, it would be insane. It would be disrespectful to the game of football and to his effort and to his hard work and stuff like that. That's the guy that the Chargers thought weren't good enough to play on their defense, and he was running down the best quarterback in the NFL. He was running him down, altering his throwing angles, altering what kind of offense that they were running. And then on top of that, what really showed itself big time in this game is the Chiefs got forced to be one-dimensional. I understand a lot of people have been talking about Isaiah Pacheco and how he hasn't really seemingly recovered from his leg break like a season ago, right? He is still an integral part of their ability to be able to run the ball. Brashard Smith has looked really good when he's been motioned out at the wide receiver position, and sometimes when he's been able to run the ball. Kareem Hunt, we all know this. He can't be the number one guy the entirety of he can't be the number one guy an entire game. It has to come down to Isaiah Pacheco or somebody else has to go out there and fill that number one running back spot, especially when they go up against these teams that are so familiar with them overall. Right? Like the Bills have played them for a team that is not in their division but is in their conference. The Bills have played the Chiefs a lot over the time that they've been in their current era with their quarterbacks and their defenses, right, with their key players up front. And they shut down the Chiefs' running ability without Ed Oliver. That is how familiar they are. That is how good that they were. That's how good they were filling their run fits. That is how good they were doing of actually forcing some of the running lanes to close with their D line up front. And that's going to be a problem for the Chiefs later on. Obviously, the Chiefs are a totally different beast when they're in the playoffs as opposed to in the regular season. But in this game, this is huge for the mental status of the Buffalo Bills. But I think we saw last year when they played against each other, basically in those press conferences after the game, they were both saying, we'll see you in the playoffs. We'll see what it's like. This game doesn't really matter that much. We'll see when it counts. They both kept saying it like verbatim, like we know we are going to play them again in the AFC Championship game. That is when it matters most. And in this one, it felt a little different, obviously, because there are a lot of people who really want Josh Allen to succeed, obviously because he's very likable and real popular and stuff like that. But the way that this game shook out, this was kind of the Bills getting over the hump in some way, shape, or form because of some past playoff drama that has come in this one. And it felt a lot more emotional, despite the fact that the Bills seemed like they were the more calm. They seemed like they were the calm team throughout the entirety of this game because they were more consistent up front, because they were dependent upon James Cook to be consistent, and he has not let them down yet. It was stunning for me to see the Chiefs defense really kind of get rocked the way that they did because they were so focused on stopping James Cook. They allowed for some leakage in terms of like over the middle of the field. There were bigger gaps to throw for Josh Allen in terms of lanes and stuff like that. And then, of course, Josh Allen took off and ran when he needed to a couple of times, and it he never let them kind of catch their footing. They were on uneven fighting ground the entire time, the entirety of this game. And I think the Bills got to be pretty proud of themselves for having such a complete game plan, knowing that the score says one thing, but how they felt throughout the course of that game says a totally different thing. Towards the back end of it, it got a little hairy because the Chiefs got the ball back with a couple of seconds left on the clock, and I think it was like 40-something seconds left on the clock, and it came down to the Bills making one more stop in a very similar situation to that one playoff game where there was 13 seconds left on the clock and they eventually go out and lose. It was kind of like a miniature version of that. They had more time on the clock, but the stakes weren't as high, right? And for them to go out there and finish it off and kind of like get a little bit of redemption in that way, even though a bunch of the guys who are on the team now were not on the team 2 years ago, I think it says something for the overall like expanse of the football game just in general. Invert liver high in the chat as well. But show's about to end here. That's all I really got to say, man. Thank you for everybody who tuned in and listened to the show. I really appreciate it. It's just me rambling, reading off my notes very poorly. And I appreciate everybody who tuned in. We got like a record high number of viewers last episode, and hopefully we get another one this one as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Hit that notification bell to know when I go live, which will probably be at like 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning next Wednesday or next Thursday, sorry. And until then, make sure y'all stay safe, drink your water, eat your vegetables. Also hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook, and follow me on Instagram at TheAshtonForever. The only thing left to say is the thing. Go home, Roger.